The Quiet Witch's Apothecary. Volume 2. Whispers Beyond the Hills. Winter quietly gives way to spring, and Moonleaf Apothecary has become one of Willowridge's most beloved places. More travelers begin visiting the countryside after hearing stories about the quiet witch beneath the spirit tree. Some seek remedies, others seek peace, while a few arrive carrying mysteries that cannot be solved with ordinary potions. As Elias settles into his new role as the spirit tree's guardian, he begins discovering that his grandmother's kindness reached far beyond Willowridge. Hidden magical roads, forgotten apothecaries, ancient familiars, wandering witches, and lonely spirits all begin finding their way to his little shop. Meanwhile, the awakened spirit tree begins reacting to something far beyond the peaceful countryside. Old magic is stirring once more. Not with hostility, but with a longing to return home. Through every customer, every cup of tea, and every potion shared, Elias slowly uncovers the forgotten network of witches who once protected ordinary people, not through battles but through compassion. Chapter 1. A Witch from the North. Spring arrived quietly in Willowridge. Winter did not disappear all at once. Small patches of snow still lingered beneath the trees, stubbornly hiding in places where sunlight rarely reached. But along the roads, tiny green shoots had begun pushing through the damp earth. The river was flowing again. Birds had returned to the rooftops. And behind Moonleaf Apothecary, the garden was slowly waking from its winter sleep. Elias stood beneath the spirit tree with a wicker basket tucked beneath one arm. Good morning. The silver leaves rustled. A few tiny lights drifted between the branches. Elias smiled. Good morning to you too. Since awakening during the winter, the spirit tree had become considerably more expressive. Sometimes its leaves chimed when Elias walked past. Sometimes it dropped a silver leaf directly into his tea. Once, when Noah had attempted to climb it, the tree had shaken an entire branch of snow onto his head. Luna insisted that had been deliberate. Elias suspected she was right. He crouched beside a patch of moon mint. Tiny silver-green leaves were emerging from the soil. Welcome back. The leaves trembled happily. Nearby, the first sun petal of the season slowly opened. Spring meant the garden would become busy again. Which meant Elias would become busy again. He didn't mind. There was something comforting about returning to familiar work. Pruning, planting, drying herbs, brewing remedies, listening to customers, making tea. It wasn't an exciting life. Elias preferred it that way. Elias. He closed his eyes. And there goes the peaceful morning. Noah came running through the garden gate carrying several parcels. Behind him walked Mia, carefully avoiding the muddy parts of the path. Luna followed last. Unlike everyone else, the black cat somehow managed to cross the wet garden without getting a single speck of mud on her paws. You're late, Luna announced. Noah stared at her. For what? I haven't decided yet. Then I'm not late. You have the personality of someone who is. What does that even mean? Mia giggled. Elias quietly took the parcels from Noah. Good morning. Morning. Noah pointed toward the road. There's a storm coming. Elias looked toward the northern hills. Dark clouds were gathering in the distance. Rain. Heavy rain, Noah corrected. Mr. Romero says it'll reach us before lunch. Elias glanced toward the garden. Then at the herbs he'd planned to harvest. We should probably hurry. Noah immediately rolled up his sleeves. Say no more. Luna looked at him. You'll pull the roots out. I know how to harvest herbs. You killed a cactus. That was one time. It died of thirst. I forgot it needed water. Luna stared at him. It was a plant. By 11, the rain arrived. It hammered against the windows of Moonleaf Apothecary, turning the countryside beyond the glass into a blurry watercolor of gray and green. Elias had lit the fireplace despite the warmer season. Several bundles of freshly harvested herbs hung above the preparation table. Mia sat in the tea corner doing homework. Noah was supposed to be sorting empty bottles. Instead, he had somehow become involved in a serious argument with Luna about whether cats could technically own property. I have lived here longer than you, Luna said. That doesn't mean you own the chair. I sleep in it. That's not how ownership works. It is for cats. At the counter, Elias continued grinding dried chamomile. He had learned not to interfere. Ding! The bell above the front door rang. Everyone looked up. A woman stood in the doorway. Rainwater dripped from the edge of her dark traveling cloak. She appeared to be somewhere in her late 20s, perhaps early 30s, with long auburn hair braided loosely over one shoulder. A worn leather satchel hung across her body, and a tall wooden staff rested in one hand. Several small charms dangled from the staff. Feathers, dried berries, tiny carved bones, a small brass bell, and around her neck hung a silver pendant shaped like a mountain beneath a crescent moon. Elias immediately noticed something else. Mana. Not the gentle traces carried by ordinary people. This woman was a witch. An experienced one. She looked around the shop. Her gaze passed over the potion shelves, the drying herbs, the fireplace, Mia, Noah, then Luna. Luna's ears lifted. The stranger's eyes finally settled on Elias. Moonleaf Apothecary. Yes, she released a breath, one that sounded as though she had been holding it for several days. Then I finally found it. Elias placed his mortar aside. You're soaked. The woman blinked. Excuse me, you should come inside properly. Only then did she realize she was still standing halfway through the doorway. Oh, she stepped inside. Elias immediately handed her a clean towel. Sit near the fireplace. The stranger stared at him. You don't want to know who I am. I do. Elias gestured toward her dripping cloak. But you're cold. For several seconds, she simply looked at him. Then she laughed. A quiet, surprised laugh. All right. 10 minutes later, the mysterious traveler sat beside the fireplace with a steaming cup between her hands. Her cloak hung nearby to dry. Elias had prepared ginger tea with honey. She took a sip. Her eyebrows rose. That's good. Thank you. Very good. Elias smiled slightly. Noah leaned toward Mia. He's already won her over. Luna's tail flicked. Tea is his most dangerous spell. The traveler placed her cup down. My name is Rowena Ashcroft. Elias sat across from her. Elias Rowan. At the surname, Rowena became still. Rowan. Yes. She studied his face carefully. Then her gaze moved toward the old photograph hanging near the fireplace. Elias's grandmother smiled from within the faded frame. Rowena slowly stood. She walked toward it. For the first time since arriving, her composure disappeared. It really is her. Elias looked at the photograph. You knew my grandmother? No. Rowena shook her head. But my master did. The rain continued outside. Rowena returned to her chair. My master was a witch named Edith Ashcroft. Luna's eyes immediately opened. Rowena noticed. You know that name. Luna jumped down from the windowsill. I do. Everyone turned toward her. Elias frowned. You never mentioned her. You never asked. Noah pointed accusingly. You use that excuse for everything. Because it continues being true. Rowena reached into her satchel. From inside, she removed an old envelope. The paper was yellowed with age. Across its front, written in faded ink, were 4 words. To Elwyn Rowan, Willowridge. Elias stopped breathing for a moment. His grandmother's name. Where did you get this? My master kept it for nearly 30 years. Why wasn't it sent? I don't know. Rowena's expression softened. She died last winter. The room became quiet. I'm sorry, Elias said. Thank you. Rowena looked toward the letter. Before she passed away, she gave me several things. Her journals, her herbarium, her wand, and this. She slid the envelope toward Elias. She told me, when spring comes, go south. Find the house beneath the silver tree. Give this to the Rowan witch. Noah stared. That's very mysterious. Mia nodded seriously. Very. Luna quietly sniffed the envelope. Then, her expression changed. Edith. There was something unusually gentle in her voice. Elias noticed immediately. You really knew her. Luna sat beside the fireplace. A long time ago. Elias carefully picked up the letter. But he didn't open it. Rowena noticed. Aren't you curious? Very. Then why? It's addressed to my grandmother. Rowena fell silent. Elias ran his thumb gently across the faded handwriting. It belonged to her. So, I think I'll wait. For what? He looked toward Luna. Until I understand why it was never delivered. Luna's emerald eyes softened. Good. After the rain weakened, Elias showed Rowena the garden. The moment she stepped outside, she froze. The spirit tree towered above them. Silver leaves shimmered beneath droplets of rain. Tiny spirit lights drifted lazily between its branches. Rowena stared upward. That's impossible. Elias tilted his head. What is? It's awake. Yes. Fully. I think so. Rowena slowly approached. She didn't touch the trunk. Instead, she bowed respectfully. In the north, we haven't seen an awakened spirit tree in generations. The branches rustled. A single silver leaf drifted downward. It landed in Rowena's open palm. She stared at it. It welcomed me. Elias smiled. It seems so. They continued through the garden. Rowena examined everything with fascination. Moon mint, silver sage, sun petals, glow moss, the giggling mushrooms. She crouched beside the latter. Are these laughing caps? Yes. I thought they were extinct. They're shy. Rowena reached toward one. Elias opened his mouth. Too late. Hey. The entire mushroom patch erupted into squeaky laughter. Rowena jerked backward. Noah burst out laughing. I did the same thing. For perhaps the first time in years. Rowena Ashcroft laughed until tears appeared in her eyes. Later, Elias prepared lunch. Simple vegetable soup. Fresh bread from the bakery. Herbal butter. Rowena watched him move around the kitchen. You cook too. A little. Noah immediately raised his hand. He cooks. Do not let Noah cook. Hey. Mia nodded solemnly. It's safer. Rowena laughed again. As they ate, she told them about the north. Mountain villages buried beneath winter snow. Small communities of witches who still practiced old traditions. Wild herbs that grew only along frozen cliffs. Hot springs inhabited by tiny steam spirits. And an old wooden cottage where Rowena had spent most of her life studying beneath her master. You traveled all the way here alone? Mia asked. Mostly. Wasn't it scary? Sometimes. Why did you come? Rowena looked toward Elias. At first. Because my master asked me. She glanced around Moonleaf Apothecary. The shelves. The fireplace. The tea corner. The people gathered around the table. Now I'm curious. About what? Elias asked. You. Elias nearly dropped his spoon. Me. Rowena smiled. My master was one of the most skilled potion witches I've ever known. She spent decades studying complicated formulas. Yet whenever she mentioned Elwyn Rowan, she never talked about powerful spells. She talked about soup. Everyone blinked. Soup? Noah asked. Soup. Rowena laughed. She once wrote that Elwyn Rowan could solve more problems with a warm bowl of soup than most witches could with an entire cabinet of potions. Elias looked toward his grandmother's photograph. That sounds like her. Rowena stayed until evening. The rain finally stopped. Golden sunlight broke through the clouds, making the wet countryside sparkle. She stood outside Moonleaf Apothecary with her satchel over one shoulder. There's an inn in town. There is. I'll stay there tonight. Elias hesitated. Then, if you'd like. Rowena looked back. You can come for breakfast tomorrow. Her expression softened. Are you always this welcoming to strangers? Elias thought about it. No. Noah nearly choked. Elias. Rowena laughed. But, Elias continued quietly. Grandmother used to say that people who travel through storms usually need somewhere warm when they arrive. For a moment, Rowena didn't answer. Then she bowed her head. I'd like breakfast. She began walking toward Willowridge. But after several steps, she stopped. Elias. Yes. My master said one more thing before I left. He waited. Rowena looked toward the awakened spirit tree. If the silver tree is awake, then don't leave Willowridge too quickly. Elias frowned. Why? Rowena smiled faintly. She didn't tell me. And with that, she continued down the road. That night, Moonleaf Apothecary became quiet. Mia had gone home. Noah had left after dinner. Only Elias and Luna remained beside the fireplace. Between them rested the unopened letter. To Elwyn Rowan. Elias looked toward Luna. You know something? Yes. Will you tell me? Luna stared into the fire. Edith Ashcroft and your grandmother were friends. Close friends. Once. Elias waited. Luna's tail curled around her paws. They were also very different witches. How? Luna looked toward him. Your grandmother believed magic should stay close to ordinary people. Edith believed witches were forgetting too much of the old world. And they argued a lot. Elias smiled slightly. Grandma argued with someone constantly. That's difficult to imagine. You only knew her as your grandmother. Luna's whiskers twitched. I knew her when she once chased Edith through a forest with a broom. Elias stared. What? That story costs cream. For the first time that evening, Elias laughed. But when the laughter faded, his eyes returned to the letter. 30 years. a friendship, an argument, a letter never delivered, and now, a witch from the north had crossed mountains and towns simply to bring it home. Outside, the spirit tree rustled beneath the clearing spring sky. Then, far beyond Willowridge, beyond the hills, something answered. A faint silver light appeared for only a moment upon the distant horizon. Elias didn't see it, but Luna did. The old familiar quietly walked toward the window. Her emerald eyes narrowed. So, she whispered, the old roads are waking too. Behind her, Moonleaf Apothecary remained warm and peaceful. And Elias Rowan still had no idea that the arrival of Rowena Ashcroft was only the first whisper from a magical world beginning to find its way back to his door. Chapter 2: The Cat Who Remembers Everything. The morning after Rowena Ashcroft arrived in Willowridge, Moonleaf Apothecary opened at exactly 8. At 8:03, Noah arrived. At 8:10, Mia appeared carrying her school bag despite it being Saturday. At 8:15, Professor Iris Vale walked through the door with a notebook tucked beneath her arm. Elias stared at all three of them. Why are you here? Noah looked offended. Breakfast. You don't live here. I know. Mia raised her hand. I'm here for Luna's stories. Professor Iris calmly removed her coat. Historical research. Elias looked at her. You too. I refused to apologize. From her favorite chair beside the fireplace, Luna opened one emerald eye. Parasites. Noah pointed at her. You're the reason we're here. An unfortunate consequence of being interesting. Yesterday, Luna had casually revealed something Elias had never expected. She had known Edith Ashcroft. More importantly, she had known Elias's grandmother, Elowyn Rowan, long before Elias was born. Apparently, that included an incident involving a forest, a broom, and someone being chased. Elias had spent most of the night thinking about it. Not because of the broom. Mostly. He realized there was an entire part of his grandmother's life he knew almost nothing about. To Elias, Elowyn Rowan had always been Grandma. The woman who made soup when he was sick. Who taught him to identify herbs. Who scolded him for reading potion books past midnight. Who could tell when he was worried before he said anything. But before Elias existed, she had already lived an entire life. And Luna remembered it. The bell above the door rang. Ding. Rowena stepped inside. Unlike yesterday, she wasn't soaked from head to toe. Her auburn hair was neatly braided, and she wore a simple dark green traveling coat instead of her heavy northern cloak. She carried a paper bag. I brought bread. Noah immediately smiled. I like her. Luna sighed. Your loyalty is remarkably affordable. Rowena placed the bag on the counter. The innkeeper said there's a bakery near the square. Mr. Bell's Bakery, Elias said. His rosemary bread is good. I bought 2. Noah put a hand over his heart. I like her even more. Breakfast became unexpectedly crowded. Elias made scrambled eggs with garden herbs. Mrs. Agnes's strawberry jam appeared from the pantry. Rowena's bread disappeared at an alarming speed. Tea was poured, then poured again. The unopened letter from Edith Ashcroft remained safely inside Elias's desk. He had decided not to read it yet. Rowena hadn't objected. Instead, she had asked for Luna's story too. Which was why 6 pairs of eyes were now staring at one increasingly irritated black cat. Luna sat in the middle of the table. No, Mia blinked. But you said. I said the story costs cream. Elias quietly placed a tiny saucer in front of her. Fresh cream. Luna stared at it, then at him. Bribery. You established the price. Fair. She drank. Slowly. Painfully slowly. Noah leaned forward. Luna. Patience. Luna. Patience. Luna. She lifted one paw. Noah stopped. Luna delicately cleaned a drop of cream from her whiskers. Then she sat upright. Very well. Her tail curled around her paws. Where should I begin? Elias answered quietly. With Grandma. For once, Luna didn't make a joke. She looked toward Elowyn's photograph hanging near the fireplace. And something changed in her expression. All right. Long before Moonleaf became quiet. Your grandmother, Luna began, was terrible at being mysterious. Elias blinked. What? Professor Iris's pencil immediately started moving. Luna continued. She tried. Very hard. She owned dark robes. She practiced dramatic entrances. She once purchased a pointed hat. Noah's eyes widened. She had a witch hat. Yes. What happened to it? She walked beneath a low branch. Rowena covered her mouth. Mia giggled. Luna's whiskers twitched. The hat remained in the tree for 3 days because she was too embarrassed to retrieve it. Elias stared at his grandmother's portrait. Grandma. Luna nodded. Your grandmother. Elowen Rowan had inherited Moonleaf Apothecary when she was 23. Back then, Willowridge had been smaller. The road wasn't paved. There was no supermarket, no pharmacy, no mobile signal tower on the hill. And witches were more common than they were now. Not everywhere, but enough that most towns had at least one healer, herbalist, ward maker, or potion brewer. Moonleaf had already existed for generations. But Elowen had been determined to make it her own. She painted the front door yellow, Luna said. Elias looked toward the current dark green door. Yellow. Bright yellow. Why? She said people should be able to find the apothecary during storms. Noah smiled. That's actually nice. It was hideous. Luna. It was. Elowen was talented. Exceptionally talented. But according to Luna, her greatest magical skill wasn't potion making. It was remembering people. She remembered everyone's favorite tea. Everyone's allergies. Everyone's birthdays. Which children were afraid of thunderstorms. Which farmers pretended their backs didn't hurt. Which elderly customers came to buy medicine. And which ones simply wanted someone to talk to. She kept notes, Luna said. Elias remembered the journals they had discovered in the forest shrine. Mrs. Agnes prefers lavender tea when pretending everything is fine. He smiled. I found some of them. I know. How? I read over your shoulder. Of course. Professor Iris stopped writing. When did you meet her? Luna became quiet. The room followed. During a storm. Elias looked at her. A storm. Much worse than yesterday's. Luna's gaze drifted toward the window. I was young. Noah frowned. How young? None of your business. You're a magical cat. Still rude. She continued. At the time, Luna had no name. No home. And no witch. She had been born a familiar, a magical creature naturally capable of forming bonds with witches, but she had never chosen one. Several witches had tried. She refused them all. One wanted a familiar because it looked prestigious. Another wanted Luna to hunt spirits. Another wanted her for magical research. So Luna left. She wandered for months. Until one autumn night, she reached Willowridge. Cold, hungry, injured, and extremely angry. That part hasn't changed, Noah whispered. Luna's head turned. Would you like to leave? No. Elowen found her beneath Moonleaf's porch. She didn't attempt a familiar contract. She didn't ask what kind of magic Luna possessed. She simply placed a bowl of warm goat's milk beside her. Then went back inside. The next morning, there was another bowl. The morning after that, another. For 12 days. On the 13th day, Luna entered the shop. Mia smiled. Because you trusted her. No. Luna looked dignified. It was raining. Noah grinned. Sure, it was. Elowen never asked Luna to become her familiar. That was important. Instead, Luna stayed. One day became a week. A week became a month. Eventually, Elowen looked at the black cat sleeping beside the fireplace and said, if you're going to live here, I need something to call you. She listed 27 names. Luna rejected all of them. 27? Rowena asked. Most were terrible. What did she suggest? Luna's expression darkened. Princess Whiskerbell. Noah collapsed onto the table laughing. Even Elias covered his mouth. Grandma. Do not defend her. I'm not. Your face is defending her. Eventually, Elowen pointed toward the moon outside. Luna. The cat had opened one eye. She hadn't objected. And that had been enough. Elias looked at Luna differently after that. You chose to stay. Luna looked toward the fireplace. Yes, even without a contract. Especially without one. Her voice became quieter. Your grandmother never believed companionship should require ownership. Elias smiled softly. That sounds like her. It does. The Northern Witch. Rowena had been silent for several minutes. Eventually, she asked, when did Edith meet Elowen? Luna's tail flicked. Ah. Noah immediately leaned closer. The broom story. The broom story, Luna confirmed. Professor Iris turned to a fresh page. Elias sighed. Should I be worried? Probably. Edith Ashcroft arrived in Willowridge during early summer. She was 25, already respected, already accomplished, and according to Luna, insufferable. Rowena nearly spilled her tea. Master. Your master. Rowena stared. She was very strict. She was a walking encyclopedia with opinions. Rowena slowly nodded. That also sounds correct. Edith had traveled south to research a rare medicinal flower called starbell. She expected to find it growing wild in the forest. Instead, she found Elowen picking the flowers. They argued immediately. Edith insisted the plant was an endangered magical specimen requiring scientific preservation. Elowen insisted Mrs. Agnes's mother needed it for arthritis medicine. Edith accused her of irresponsible harvesting. Elowen accused Edith of caring more about books than people. Neither backed down. So Grandma chased her with a broom? Elias asked. No. Luna's eyes gleamed. That happened 3 days later. The broom incident involved a potion. A very experimental potion. Edith wanted to create a fertilizer capable of accelerating magical plant growth. Elowen warned her that the mixture was unstable. Edith ignored her. The potion exploded. Nothing dangerous happened. Except, every weed surrounding Moonleaf Apothecary grew approximately 6 meters tall. Nose-mouth fell open. 6 meters. Approximately. What did Grandma do? She grabbed a broom. Why? Because Edith ran. Rowena covered her face. Master. Elowen chased her halfway through the forest. With a broom. With a broom. Mia was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. Professor Iris had stopped pretending her notes were purely academic. Even Elias couldn't stop smiling. He had spent his entire childhood believing his grandmother had always been calm. Apparently, she had simply become calm by the time he knew her. But they became friends. Rowena asked. Luna nodded. Eventually, the starbell flower brought them together. Edith developed a sustainable cultivation method. Elowen adapted it for ordinary gardens. Together, they managed to grow enough starbells that Willowridge no longer needed to harvest the wild population. Their arguments became conversations. Their conversations became visits. Their visits became friendship. Every year, Edith returned from the north. Sometimes for research. Sometimes to exchange herbs. Sometimes, simply for tea. They wrote to each other constantly, Luna said. Rowena looked toward Elias's desk. Then why was that letter never sent? The warmth in the room faded slightly. Luna didn't answer immediately. Elias noticed. There was an argument. Yes. About what? Luna stared at the fire. Magic. Professor Iris frowned. That's rather broad. It was supposed to be. As the years passed, witches became less common. Not because magic disappeared. The world changed. Modern medicine improved. Cities expanded. Old magical communities became smaller. Some witches stopped practicing entirely. Others withdrew from ordinary society. Edith became increasingly worried that ancient magical knowledge was being lost. She believed witches needed to preserve the old roads, shrines, covens, rituals, and magical sanctuaries before they disappeared. Elowen agreed that history mattered. But, she refused to abandon the ordinary people around her to preserve it. Edith wanted her to leave Willowridge. Elias asked. For a while. Luna nodded. She wanted Elowen to join a network of witches dedicated to restoring old magical places. And Grandma said no. Immediately. Elowen had apparently said, a forgotten shrine can wait another winter. Mrs. Bennett's fever cannot. Edith responded. If we allow everything old to disappear, eventually there will be nothing left for the next generation. And Elowen answered. Then let the next generation inherit kindness first. Neither woman was entirely wrong. That was what made the argument painful. Rowena looked down at her hands. My master never told me. People rarely tell apprentices about the arguments they regret, Luna replied. Elias's eyes returned to the unopened letter. So that was their last conversation. No. Luna shook her head. They apologized. Everyone looked surprised. They remained friends. Elias frowned. Then why? Because life became busy. The simplest answer. And somehow, the saddest. Edith returned north. Elowen remained in Willowridge. They wrote less often. Then years passed. One intended to visit. The other intended to write. There was always another season. Another patient. Another responsibility. Another tomorrow. Until eventually, there weren't enough tomorrows left. Silence settled over Moonleaf Apothecary. Outside, spring rainwater still dripped from the roof. Mia looked toward Elowen's photograph. That's sad. Luna's voice softened. Yes, but it happens. Rowena slowly stood and approached the photograph. My master kept that letter for 30 years. Maybe she couldn't send it, Elias said. Maybe. Rowena looked toward him. Or perhaps she kept thinking she'd deliver it herself. That possibility hurt more. Elias understood why. Luna suddenly jumped down from the table. Come. Elias blinked. Where? Upstairs. She began walking toward the staircase. Noah stood. We're coming. No. Why? Because I'm about to reveal something private. Noah immediately sat down. Fair. Luna looked toward Rowena. You too. Rowena followed. Upstairs, Luna led them into Elowin's old bedroom. Elias rarely entered. Nothing had been preserved like a museum. His grandmother would have hated that. Most of her clothes had been donated years ago. Her books had been moved downstairs. But an old wooden wardrobe remained. Luna jumped onto a chair. Top shelf. Elias reached upward. His fingers found a small wooden box pushed far into the back. I've never seen this. You weren't supposed to. Luna. She told me to show you when you were ready. When am I ready? Luna looked toward Rowena. Apparently today. Elias opened the box. Inside were dozens of letters. Some tied with blue ribbon. Some yellowed. Some covered with old postal stamps. All addressed to Elowin Rowan. And nearly every sender was the same. Edith Ashcroft. Rowena's eyes widened. Master. Elias carefully lifted one. The date was more than 40 years old. Another. 38. Another. 35. There were dozens. His grandmother had kept every one. Beneath them lay photographs. Two young women stood beside Moonleaf Apothecary. One was unmistakably Elowin. Young. Smiling widely. Holding a broom. Beside her stood a stern-looking woman with dark auburn hair. Her clothing was covered in dirt. Behind them, towering weeds filled the garden. Elias stared. Rowena stared. Then both started laughing. She kept a photograph. Rowena exclaimed. Apparently. Luna looked smug. I took that. Elias turned slowly. How? Magic. You operated a camera. I am capable of pressing a button. There were more photographs. Elowin and Edith drinking tea. Gathering herbs. Arguing over a book. Standing beneath the still dormant spirit tree. And one showing them much older. Sitting together outside Moonleaf Apothecary. No magic. No adventures. Just two friends sharing tea. Rowena touched the photograph gently. I've never seen her smile like that. Elias looked at his grandmother. I have. For a moment, they simply stood together. Two students of two witches who were gone. Connected by memories neither had personally lived. Then Elias noticed something at the bottom of the box. A small envelope. His grandmother's handwriting. On the front. For Edith. Rowena stopped breathing. She wrote one too. The envelope was sealed. Never sent. Elias carefully held it. One letter from Edith to Elowin. One from Elowin to Edith. Two friends. Each carrying words that never reached the other. Rowena's eyes filled with tears. But she smiled. They were ridiculous. Luna nodded. Extremely. Elias laughed softly. They really were. They didn't open either letter. Not yet. Instead, Elias placed them together inside the wooden box. Side by side, where perhaps they should have been all along. That afternoon, Rowena remained at Moonleaf Apothecary. Professor Iris examined the old photographs. Mia demanded more stories. Noah attempted to convince Luna that historical information should be free. Luna charged him another saucer of cream. And Elias listened. He listened to stories about a grandmother he had never known. The young witch who painted her door yellow. The stubborn herbalist who argued with scholars. The woman who chased another witch through a forest with a broom. The person who gave a homeless familiar milk for 12 days without asking anything in return. Every story changed nothing about the grandmother Elias remembered. And somehow, made him understand her even more. That evening, after everyone had left, Elias found Luna sitting beneath the spirit tree. He joined her. For a while, neither spoke. Then Elias quietly said, "Thank you." Luna's ear twitched. For what? For remembering her. The black cat stared toward the silver branches. Someone should. Elias smiled. I'd like to hear everything someday. Luna looked at him. Everything. Everything. That will require considerable cream. I expected that. The spirit tree rustled overhead. A silver leaf drifted down between them. Luna watched it fall. Then she quietly leaned against Elias's leg. Just slightly. He didn't mention it. Neither did she. Because Moonleaf Apothecary had always been filled with memories. In journals. In recipes. In photographs. In letters that had never reached their destination. And most of all, inside a stubborn black cat who had spent decades pretending she didn't care nearly as much as she did. For the first time, Elias understood something important. Luna wasn't simply his grandmother's familiar. She was her friend, her witness. And now, she was the keeper of stories that might otherwise have disappeared forever. Above them, the awakened spirit tree shimmered softly. As though it remembered too. Chapter 3 The Ghost Who Wanted Tea. The first time Elias noticed the ghost, he thought he was simply tired. It had been a long Tuesday. 3 customers had come in asking for allergy remedies. Mr. Romero needed something for his aching knees. Mrs. Agnes had brought 2 pies and somehow left with 4 jars of tea despite insisting she wasn't buying anything. Mia had spent the afternoon studying at the tea corner. Noah had broken exactly 1 flower pot. It slipped. You were balancing it on your head. I wanted to see if I could. You couldn't. We know that now. And Professor Iris had spent several hours helping Elias organize the newly discovered letters between Elwyn Rowan and Edith Ashcroft. By closing time, Elias wanted nothing more than tea, a book, and silence. He turned the sign on the front door. Closed. The clock read 8:30. Outside, Willowridge had settled into a cool spring evening. Streetlights glowed along the quiet road. The last bus passed in the distance. Elias began collecting the empty cups from the tea corner. 1, 2, 3. Then, he stopped. There was someone sitting beside the window. An elderly man, gray hair, brown cardigan, white shirt, old-fashioned trousers. His hands rested peacefully upon the table. Elias stared. The elderly man stared back. "Good evening," Elias said. The man smiled, then disappeared. Elias stood completely still. From the counter, Luna looked up. "You finally noticed him." Elias slowly turned. "Finally. He's been here for 4 evenings." 4. "Yes. Why didn't you tell me?" Luna returned to cleaning one paw. "You didn't ask." Elias closed his eyes. Of course. The following evening, Elias deliberately left the table beside the window empty. 7 o'clock. Nothing. 7:30. Nothing. 8. Still nothing. Noah leaned across the counter. "So we're waiting for a ghost." "Apparently." Mia's eyes sparkled. "A real ghost?" "Yes." "Is he scary?" "No." Luna stretched. "He's extremely polite." Noah frowned. "You've spoken to him?" "No." "Then how do you know?" "He wipes his feet before walking through the wall." Noah stared. "That's somehow sadder." Professor Iris adjusted her glasses. "Ordinary spirits usually remain because of unresolved attachments." Rowena, who had extended her stay in Willowridge for several days, nodded. "Places, people, promises, objects." Mia raised her hand. "Tea." Everyone looked at her. She pointed toward the empty table. "Maybe he likes tea." Elias considered it. "That's possible." At exactly 8:30, the lights flickered. The air near the window became cold. Then, the elderly man appeared, sitting in exactly the same chair. Noah immediately grabbed Elias's sleeve. "I'm not scared. I didn't say anything. I wanted that established." The ghost looked around. His expression became slightly confused by the crowd staring at him. Elias approached first. "Good evening." The old man smiled. "Good evening." His voice was faint, like someone speaking from another room. Elias gestured toward the chair opposite him. "May I?" The ghost nodded. Elias sat. "What can I do for you?" The man looked toward the counter. Then toward the teapot. "Tea." Mia's face lit up. "I knew it." Elias stood. "What kind?" The ghost seemed surprised. "You can make me tea." "I can try." The old man thought carefully. Then smiled. "Black tea. A little milk. 1 spoon of honey." Elias nodded. "Anything else?" The man's smile became warmer. 2 cups. That changed everything. Elias paused. 2. Please. He prepared the tea. Ordinary tea wouldn't work. Ghosts couldn't eat or drink physical things. But Moonleaf Apothecary had ingredients intended for spirits. Elias added a single dried mistflower petal to the pot. Then a pinch of moon mint. The tea shimmered faintly blue. Steam curled upward. But instead of disappearing, it gathered around the cups like mist. Elias carried the tray to the table. 2 cups. He placed one before the old man. The ghost carefully lifted it. His fingers didn't pass through the porcelain. He stared. "Warm." His voice trembled. Elias sat opposite him. "Who is the second cup for?" The ghost looked toward the empty chair beside him. "My wife." Nobody spoke. The old man stared at the empty seat. She used to sit there. Here, Elias asked. Long ago. His gaze traveled around Moonleaf Apothecary. It looked different then. The walls were lighter. The door was yellow. Elias's eyes widened. Luna stopped moving. You knew my grandmother. The ghost looked toward Elowen's photograph. Miss Rowan. A soft laugh escaped him. She always gave us too much honey. Luna muttered. She gave everyone too much honey. The old man's name was Arthur Bennett. He had lived in Willowridge for almost 70 years. His wife had been Clara. Every Thursday afternoon, for more than 30 years, Arthur and Clara came to Moonleaf Apothecary. They sat beside the window, ordered 2 cups of black tea, milk, 1 spoonful of honey, and talked, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for hours. What did you talk about? Mia asked. Arthur smiled. Nothing important. The weather, the garden, our children, neighbors, what to cook for dinner. He looked toward the empty chair. Everything. Clara died first, 8 years ago. Afterward, Arthur continued visiting, 1 cup instead of 2. He still sat beside the window. Still ordered black tea. Still complained that Elowen used too much honey. Then Elowen passed away. The apothecary closed for a while. Arthur stopped coming. 2 years later, he died too. Noah swallowed. So you've been here. Arthur shook his head. No, I don't know where I was. His expression became confused. Everything was quiet. Then recently, I smelled tea. Everyone looked toward Elias. Arthur smiled. It smelled exactly like it used to. So I followed it. The spirit tree. Since awakening, its magic had begun spreading farther through Willowridge. Old roads, old memories, old connections, perhaps, even old customers. Elias looked toward the second untouched cup. Are you waiting for Clara? Arthur's smile faded. I thought I was. He stared at the steam. But, I think she's been waiting for me. He reached into his cardigan. His translucent hand emerged holding something. A small silver ring. It shimmered faintly. My wedding ring. Professor Iris leaned forward. A spiritual imprint. Arthur nodded. I couldn't remember where I left the real one. And you think that's why you're still here? Rowena asked. Perhaps. Then he looked embarrassed. Or perhaps, I was afraid. No one interrupted. Arthur's voice became softer. When you've spent 60 years beside someone, going somewhere without them feels strange. Even when you're trying to find them. Mia quietly moved closer to Elias. Arthur looked at the second cup. I wanted one last Thursday. Elias glanced at the calendar. Today was Wednesday. He smiled. Then come back tomorrow. Arthur blinked. What? Tomorrow is Thursday. The room became quiet. We'll keep your table. Arthur stared at him, then laughed. A warm, gentle laugh. You're very much like Miss Rowan. Elias smiled. I've been told that. The next evening, Moonleaf Apothecary closed early. At 7 o'clock, Elias placed a small sign on the door. Private tea evening. Noah brought flowers. Mia arranged them in a tiny vase. Professor Iris prepared mistflower petals. Rowena helped Elias brew the tea. Luna occupied the windowsill. At exactly 8:30, Arthur appeared. He looked surprised. The table had been prepared exactly as he remembered. 2 cups, black tea, milk, honey, a small plate of biscuits. And beside the empty chair, a vase of white daisies. Clara's favorite, Arthur whispered. Elias nodded. Luna remembered. Arthur looked toward the cat. Luna turned her head. I remember most things. Everyone gave him space. Arthur sat beside the window. 1 cup before him, 1 before Clara's empty chair. Outside, Willowridge's lights shimmered beneath the spring night. He lifted his cup. Hello, darling. Nobody answered. But Arthur smiled anyway. You would have complained that I'm late. He took a sip. His eyes closed. Perfect. From across the room, Elias whispered. Too much honey. Arthur opened one. Definitely. They both smiled. Arthur talked for nearly an hour. Not to Elias. Not to the others. To Clara. He told her about the years after she left. Their eldest daughter's new house. Their grandson graduating university. The rosebush she planted finally reaching the upstairs window. He told her he had missed her. He told her he was sorry for taking so long. And finally, he said, I'm ready now. The room became very still. The second cup suddenly moved. Just slightly. A tiny ripple crossed the tea. Arthur froze. A familiar perfume filled the room. Lavender. Then, a faint hand appeared beside the empty cup, followed by an arm, a shoulder, and finally, an elderly woman sitting in the chair. She was barely visible, like moonlight reflected on glass. Arthur stared at her. Clara. She smiled. You're late. Arthur began laughing and crying at the same time. I knew you'd say that. Mia covered her mouth. Noah looked away, wiping his eyes. I'm not crying. Luna glanced at him. You are. It's allergies. To ghosts. Yes. Clara reached across the table. Arthur took her hand. For the first time, both looked completely solid. Young, almost. Not in appearance, but in happiness. Arthur turned toward Elias. Thank you. Elias shook his head. I only made tea. Arthur smiled. Sometimes that's enough. The couple stood. Clara gave Luna a small wave. Still here. Luna's tail flicked. Someone has to supervise the Rowans. Clara laughed. Then she looked at Elias. Take care of this place. I will. Arthur and Clara walked toward the door. They didn't pass through the wall. Arthur reached for the handle. The bell rang. Ding. And together, they stepped outside. There was no blinding light. No dramatic magic. They simply walked down the quiet road. Hand in hand, their forms gradually becoming silver beneath the streetlights. Until they disappeared. The following morning, Elias found something beneath the table. A real silver wedding ring. Old. Scratched. On the inside were 2 engraved initials. A+C. Luna looked at it. He must have hidden it beneath the floorboards years ago. Elias carefully cleaned the ring. Then placed it inside a tiny glass box near the tea corner. Beneath it, he wrote. Arthur and Clara Bennett. Their table is always reserved on Thursdays. Weeks passed. No ghost returned. But every Thursday, Elias placed 2 cups on the table beside the window. Black tea. A little milk. 1 spoonful of honey. Sometimes customers asked why. Elias simply smiled. Old regulars. And strangely, on quiet Thursday evenings, the scent of lavender occasionally drifted through Moonleaf Apothecary. The second cup sometimes developed the smallest ripple. And Luna, who remembered almost everything, would open one emerald eye from the windowsill. Then close it again. Because not every spirit needed a powerful ritual. Not every unfinished story required great magic. Sometimes, a person simply needed somewhere familiar. Someone willing to listen. And one last cup of tea with the person they loved. Chapter 4: The Hidden Marketplace. On Friday morning, Professor Iris Vale entered Moonleaf Apothecary carrying 2 train tickets. She placed them on the counter. Elias looked at them, then at her. Why? Because you're coming with me. Where? Shopping. Elias stared. Professor Iris smiled. Magical shopping. That made him stare slightly harder. Noah immediately appeared from the tea corner. Can I come? No. Why not? Because you once spent 40 minutes deciding between 2 identical bags of rice. They weren't identical. They were the same brand. Different packaging. Luna opened one emerald eye from the windowsill. Leave him here. Noah looked betrayed. You too. Especially me. Mia raised her hand. Where are you going? Professor Iris placed a small card beside the tickets. It looked like an ordinary railway ticket. Except there was no destination. Only a silver symbol resembling a lantern surrounded by ivy. The Lantern Market. Elias frowned. I've never heard of it. Most people haven't. Where is it? Iris smiled. Inside an abandoned railway station. Noah's eyes widened. That's the coolest sentence you've ever said. Rowena, who was sitting nearby drinking tea, nearly choked. The Lantern Market still exists. Professor Iris turned. You've been. Once. When I was 19. Rowena leaned back. I accidentally bought a scarf that insulted me for 6 months. Mia's eyes sparkled. Can we get one? No, Elias said immediately. Professor Iris explained while Elias packed his satchel. The Lantern Market was one of several hidden magical marketplaces scattered throughout the country. Most witches bought ordinary ingredients through modern suppliers now. Websites, delivery services, specialty pharmacies. Even magical ingredients could be ordered online if you knew which encrypted catalogs to access. But certain things couldn't be shipped. Living herbs disliked cardboard boxes. Some spirits refused to conduct business electronically. Enchanted objects occasionally interfered with delivery scanners. And rare magical ingredients often needed to choose their buyers. So people still use old markets, Elias said. Exactly. Iris nodded. And the lantern market is the closest. Elias looked around Moonleaf Apothecary. What do we need? Spirit glass. 4. The heart seed. Elias became quiet. The silver and emerald seed gifted by the awakened spirit tree remained safely stored upstairs. He hadn't planted it. He didn't know if he should. Professor Iris had been researching it for weeks. Spirit glass will let us examine its mana without disturbing it. Elias nodded. Anything else? Iris smiled. That's up to you. Dangerous answer. The train left Willowridge at 11. It was completely ordinary. Students stared at their phones. An elderly couple shared sandwiches. A businessman slept against the window. Elias and Iris sat quietly near the back. Outside, countryside fields slowly gave way to suburbs. Then apartment buildings. Then the edge of the city. Elias rarely traveled this far anymore. He watched everything through the window. Professor Iris noticed. When was the last time you left Willowridge? 3 years ago. Iris blinked. 3. I don't travel much. I've noticed. They got off at Westbridge Station. Modern. Busy. Loud. Announcements echoed overhead. Commuters hurried between platforms. Elias immediately missed Willowridge. Professor Iris smiled knowingly. Overwhelmed. A little. You'll prefer where we're going. They walked for nearly 15 minutes. Past apartment buildings. Across a pedestrian bridge. Behind an old warehouse district. Eventually, they reached a rusted fence. Beyond it stood an abandoned railway station. Its sign had faded almost completely. Westbridge Old Terminal. Windows were boarded. Weeds grew between the tracks. Graffiti covered one wall. Elias looked at Iris. Here. This looks condemned. It is. Comforting. Professor Iris approached an old ticket machine. It had no electricity. She inserted the silver card. Nothing happened. Then, click. The machine lit up. Instead of prices, the screen displayed one question. What are you seeking? Iris touched the screen. Something difficult to find. The machine printed 2 tickets. Platform 0. Elias looked toward the platforms. There were signs for 1 through 6. There isn't a platform 0. Professor Iris walked toward the wall between platforms 3 and 4. Not normally. She stepped directly into the brick wall and disappeared. Elias stopped. Her head reappeared. Coming. I dislike magical entrances. Why? They're unnecessarily dramatic. From somewhere behind the wall, Iris laughed. Elias sighed, then stepped through. Sound hit him first. Hundreds of voices. Music. Bells. Laughter. Then, light. Elias opened his eyes. The abandoned railway station was gone. In its place stretched an enormous underground market. Old railway platforms had transformed into winding streets lined with colorful stalls. Thousands of lanterns floated overhead. Red, blue, green, gold. Some contained ordinary flames. Others held tiny stars. One appeared to contain a thunderstorm. Elias stared. Oh. Professor Iris smiled. Welcome to the lantern market. The crowd was even stranger. Witches in modern clothes carried reusable shopping bags. An elf wearing headphones argued over mushroom prices. 2 dwarves operated a coffee stand beneath a railway clock. A river spirit carried bottles filled with glowing water. A woman with antlers sold handmade soap. A teenage witch paid for enchanted candles using her phone. Beep. Contactless payment accepted, Elias murmured. Iris looked amused. It's still the 21st century. They passed a stall displaying enchanted kitchenware. A wooden spoon stirred soup by itself. A kettle complained whenever someone forgot to refill it. A frying pan shouted, "Too hot." Elias stopped. No, I didn't suggest anything. No. At another stall, hundreds of bottled clouds lined wooden shelves. Morning mist. Summer rain. First snow. Thunderstorm. Extra loud. The merchant smiled. 3 jars for 20. Elias kept walking. Professor Iris followed. You weren't tempted. I have weather at home. They eventually reached a narrow stall tucked beneath an old staircase. A tiny elderly woman sat behind the counter. Her pointed ears immediately revealed that she wasn't human. Shelves behind her contained hundreds of glass containers. Some transparent, some black, some glowing faintly. Professor Iris bowed. Mrs. Fenn. The woman looked up. Iris Vale. Then her sharp eyes shifted toward Elias. She became still. Rowan. Elias blinked. You know me. No. Mrs. Fen leaned closer. But I knew your grandmother. Elias had begun hearing that sentence surprisingly often. Mrs. Fen stood. Elowen bought spirit glass from me for 42 years. Really? Always complained about my prices. Professor Iris smiled. Were they unreasonable? Extremely. Mrs. Fen grinned. I liked her. She disappeared behind a curtain. Moments later, she returned carrying a small transparent box. Inside rested a round glass vessel. It shimmered with faint rainbow colors. Pure spirit glass. Professor Iris examined it. Perfect. Mrs. Fen looked at Elias. What are you storing? A heart seed. The market noise seemed to disappear. Mrs. Fen slowly lowered the box. A real one. Elias nodded. From an awakened spirit tree. The old woman's expression changed. Not greed. Not excitement. Reverence. Then take it. She pushed the box toward him. Elias frowned. How much? Nothing. I can't. You can. Mrs. Fen's expression softened. Your grandmother once helped my daughter. She never accepted payment. Elias hesitated. Then bowed. Thank you. Mrs. Fen smiled. Tell the silver tree an old glassmaker remembers. Their actual errand was finished. Professor Iris checked the time. We have 3 hours before our train. Elias immediately understood. You planned this. Of course. They explored. Slowly. At first, Elias merely observed. Then he found the herb district. Everything changed. Is that frost time? Yes. And genuine starbell root? Yes. How much? Iris laughed. You've awakened. One merchant sold herbs grown on rooftops in magical city gardens. Another specialized in plants cultivated by dryads. There were mushrooms from underground dwarven farms. Sea herbs harvested by merfolk. Flowers that bloomed only beneath streetlights. Elias examined everything. Asked questions. Compared scents. Discussed cultivation methods. For someone normally quiet, he became surprisingly talkative around plants. Professor Iris watched with amusement. You've said more in 20 minutes than you did during the entire train ride. These are interesting. I see. At one stall, Elias stopped. Small packets of seeds sat beneath a handwritten sign. Forgotten houseplants. The merchant, a middle-aged witch with bright purple glasses, smiled. Plants people abandoned. Elias frowned. Abandoned. Some owners moved. Some forgot them. Some simply stopped caring. She held up a tiny packet. These seeds come from plants rescued from empty apartments. Elias bought 6. Professor Iris watched him. Of course you did. They deserve somewhere to grow. I know. They stopped for lunch at the Dwarven Cafe. The menu included ordinary coffee. Magical coffee. Extremely magical coffee. And something called the hammer. Elias pointed. What is that? The dwarf behind the counter smiled. You'll hear colors. I'll have tea. Wise. Professor Iris ordered the hammer. Elias stared. You have a lecture tomorrow. I know. 20 minutes later. Professor Iris was staring intensely at a lantern. I understand mathematics. Drink water. While Iris recovered, Elias wandered toward a quieter section of the market. The stalls here were older. Fewer customers. Books. Antiques. Old charms. Handwritten spellbooks. Objects from magical communities that no longer existed. Then he noticed something. A wooden sign. A crescent moon intertwined with a flowering branch. The same symbol as the Forgotten Forest Shrine. Elias stopped. The stall beneath it was empty. Dust covered the shelves. A faded notice hung across the entrance. Closed until the roads return. Elias frowned. Professor Iris approached behind him. What did you find? He pointed toward the symbol. I've seen that before. Where? The forest shrine. Iris became serious. Before they could investigate further, a bell rang throughout the market. Once, twice, 3 times. Merchants stopped talking. Several older witches looked toward the ceiling. The floating lanterns flickered. Then, every lantern turned silver. Elias felt something beneath his feet. A pulse, like roots moving beneath the ground. The same feeling he'd experienced when the spirit tree awakened. Professor Iris whispered, Elias, I know. The abandoned stall suddenly creaked. The dusty sign swung gently. Closed until the roads return. One word slowly faded. Closed. Then another. Until only 3 remained. The roads return. The lanterns returned to normal. Conversation gradually resumed. Some people looked confused. Others, worried. An elderly witch nearby stared directly at Elias. Then at the rowan pendant around his neck. So it's true. Elias turned. What is? But she disappeared into the crowd. Professor Iris looked toward the old stall. Perhaps we should leave. Elias nodded. For once, he agreed immediately. Before heading toward the exit, they passed one final stall. A tiny spirit no larger than Elias's hand sat behind a table covered with charms. It pointed at him. You. Elias stopped. Me. The spirit grabbed a tiny wooden object. A key. Old. Covered with carved vines. It placed the key in Elias's palm. Delivery. From who? The spirit shrugged. Been waiting. How long? Another shrug. Long. Elias looked at the key. Payment. Already paid. By whom? The tiny spirit pointed upward. Or perhaps, north. Then it disappeared inside a teapot. Professor Iris stared at Elias. You attract mysteries. I don't like mysteries. They appear to like you. They returned to Willowridge just before sunset. Noah was waiting at the station. So, Elias stepped off the train carrying 3 bags. Noah's eyes widened. You bought things. Herbs. Anything dangerous? No. Professor Iris stepped off behind him. Her hair looked slightly disheveled. Noah stared. What happened to her? The hammer. Professor Iris raised one finger. I can still hear yellow. Noah looked at Elias. What? Don't ask. That evening, Elias placed the spirit glass safely beside the heart seed. Then he emptied his shopping bags. Rare herbs. Rescued seeds. 2 new tea blends. A book about urban magical gardening. And finally, the mysterious wooden key. Luna jumped onto the table. She stared at it. Her entire body became still. Where did you get that? The lantern market. Who gave it to you? A small spirit. Luna sniffed the key, then looked toward the spirit tree outside. Elowen. Elias frowned. It belonged to Grandma. Yes. What does it open? Luna looked at him. For once, she had no sarcastic answer. Instead, she said quietly. I don't know. Outside, the spirit tree rustled. Far beneath Willowridge, something ancient shifted. And miles away, inside an abandoned railway station, a dusty magical stall opened its shutters for the first time in decades. Above its entrance, the old symbol of a crescent moon and flowering branch began to glow. The hidden magical world had noticed Willowridge again. And slowly, very slowly, the forgotten roads were beginning to return. Chapter 5 The Baker and the Fairy Yeast. At 6:30 on Monday morning, someone began pounding on the front door of Moonleaf Apothecary. Bang, bang, bang. Elias opened one eye. He stared at the ceiling. Bang, bang, bang. From the foot of his bed, Luna's ears flattened. If that's Noah. Another frantic knock echoed through the house. Elias reached for his glasses. Noah usually uses the bell. He abuses the bell. True. Elias pulled on a cardigan and went downstairs. The apothecary was still dark. Morning sunlight had barely begun creeping through the windows. He unlocked the front door. A large man stood outside. His apron was covered in flour. His hair was covered in flour. There was flour on one eyebrow. And somehow, a handprint of flour on his back. Elias recognized him immediately. Mr. Bell. Thomas Bell, owner of Bell's Bakery, looked like a man who had personally witnessed the end of civilization. Elias. What happened? Thomas grabbed both of Elias's shoulders. My bread is dead. Elias blinked. I'm sorry. My bread is dead. 10 minutes later, Thomas sat at the tea corner clutching a mug. Luna sat opposite him. She stared. Thomas stared back. Does she always do that? Yes. Why? Judgment. I am evaluating you, Luna corrected. That's worse. Thomas took a long drink. Then explained. Bell's Bakery had been operating in Willowridge for almost 80 years. His grandfather started it. His father inherited it. Then Thomas. The bakery was famous for its bread. Especially the rosemary loaves Elias liked. But 3 days ago, the dough stopped rising. All of it? Elias asked. All. Did you change flour? No. Water? No. Temperature? Same ovens. Yeast supplier? Thomas hesitated. That's complicated. Luna's tail flicked. Ah. Elias adjusted his glasses. How complicated? Thomas looked around nervously. Then leaned closer. My yeast isn't normal. Elias waited. Thomas whispered. It's fairy yeast. I see. Thomas blinked. That's it. What? You're not surprised. You came to a witch's apothecary at 6:30 in the morning because your bread stopped rising. Fair. Belle's bakery had used the same enchanted sourdough starter for 3 generations. Thomas's grandfather called it Mother Belle. The starter never spoiled, never weakened, and produced unusually light, fragrant bread. The Belle family believed it was simply an enchanted recipe. Until Thomas inherited the bakery. One night, he saw something climbing out of the starter jar. A tiny person, with wings. Then another. And another. The bakery's famous yeast wasn't merely magical. It was home to a colony of bread fairies. Luna sighed. Kitchen fair folk. You know them? Elias asked. Of course. Are they dangerous? Only if you're a raisin. Thomas looked alarmed. We sell raisin bread. Luna stared at him. Then perhaps. By 7:30, Elias was dressed. By 7:40, Noah appeared. Morning. Elias stared. Why are you awake? I smelled bread. Thomas looked toward him. From 3 streets away. Noah nodded. My greatest talent. Luna muttered. Tragic. Mia joined them before school. She was eating a pastry Thomas had brought as an apology for waking Elias. Can I see the fairies? You have school, Elias reminded her. Mia looked devastated. But, school. Fine. She pointed at Noah. He doesn't have school. I have work. You follow Elias around. That's work. Elias looked at him. No, it isn't. Belle's bakery stood near Willowridge's town square. Even this early, customers were already gathering outside. Unfortunately, the display windows were almost empty. A handwritten sign read, Limited bread today. Sorry. Thomas unlocked the door. Inside, the bakery smelled wonderful. Butter, sugar, cinnamon, fresh coffee. But something was missing. Bread. Rows of dough sat on preparation tables. Flat, heavy, completely unchanged. Noah poked one. Sad. Don't poke my dough. Sorry. Thomas led Elias into the back room. An enormous glass jar sat on a wooden shelf. Inside was pale sourdough starter. Elias immediately sensed magic. Weak magic. Very weak. He leaned closer. Tiny footprints covered the flour around the jar. Luna sniffed. They're still here. Thomas looked relieved. Then why aren't they working? Luna's eyes narrowed. Perhaps because they're tired. Elias opened the jar. Nothing happened. He waited. Then quietly said, Good morning. Noah looked at him. You're talking to yeast. I'm talking to the fairies. Right. That's somehow more normal now. Something moved. A tiny head appeared behind the rim. 2 suspicious eyes stared at Elias. Then vanished. Elias smiled. It's all right. Another head appeared. Then another. Soon, nearly 20 tiny fairies climbed from behind the jar. They were no larger than Elias's thumb. Their wings resembled translucent wheat husks. Their clothing looked stitched from flour sacks and dried leaves. And every single one looked exhausted. One fairy yawned so dramatically it fell backward into the starter. Thomas gasped. Oh no. Elias carefully held out his palm. A tiny fairy climbed onto it. Hello. The fairy crossed its arms. Human. Thomas whispered. They can talk. The fairy glared at him. Of course we can talk, Thomas. Thomas became pale. They know my name. We live in your wall. Oh. The fairy introduced herself as Crumb. She was apparently the colony's spokesperson. Or union representative. Elias wasn't entirely sure. What happened? He asked. Crumb pointed dramatically toward Thomas. Him. Thomas looked wounded. Me. You. What did I do? Crumb inhaled. Then unleashed 3 years of complaints. The bakery had become busier. Much busier. Thomas started waking earlier. Baking more. Taking larger orders. Holiday orders. Wedding orders. Festival orders. Online orders. Delivery orders. The bread fairies had continued helping. Every loaf needed a little magical encouragement. A whisper to the yeast. A sprinkle of fairy dust. A tiny dance across the dough. One loaf wasn't difficult. Neither were 10 or 20. But Thomas was now making hundreds every week. You never rest. Crumb shouted. Thomas stared. We close Sundays. You make dough on Sundays. Oh, and you bought the mixer. Thomas looked confused. What's wrong with the mixer? Every fairy shuddered. Crumb whispered. The metal monster. Noah covered his mouth. The new industrial mixer vibrated the entire wall where the fairies lived. Every morning, for hours, their tiny homes shook. Their beds fell over. Their flour jars shattered. One fairy had apparently been thrown out of a hammock 6 times. Thomas looked horrified. I didn't know. Crumb's wings drooped. You never asked. Elias looked around the bakery. There was no curse. No broken magic. No mysterious disease. The fairies were simply overworked. Thomas sat heavily on a flour sack. I thought the starter was enchanted. It is, Elias said. But enchantments aren't always objects. He looked toward the tiny fairies. Sometimes they're people. Thomas lowered his head. I've been treating them like ingredients. Crumb didn't answer. That was answer enough. Thomas stood. What do I do? Luna jumped onto the table. Apologize. Then, ask them. Thomas crouched beside the shelf. 20 tiny faces watched him. I'm sorry. Crumb crossed her arms. I genuinely didn't know you were helping this much. Another fairy muttered. Humans never do. Thomas winced. I should have paid more attention. He looked toward the flat dough covering the tables. The bakery wouldn't exist without you. Crumb raised an eyebrow. Thomas corrected himself. The bakery wouldn't be what it is without you. That seemed better. So, what do you need? The fairies immediately produced a list. An actual list. It unfolded from Crumb's hands. And continued unfolding, until it reached the floor. Noah stared. They've been preparing. Luna nodded approvingly. Good. Their demands were surprisingly reasonable. No mixer before 8. A quieter home. 2 days off every week. Fresh berries every Friday. No cinnamon stored beside their sleeping quarters. Apparently the smell was overwhelming. And 1 loaf. Thomas frowned. 1 loaf. Crumb nodded. Every morning. For us. Thomas's expression softened. You help make hundreds. Crumb looked away. No one ever makes one for us. Thomas swallowed. Done. They spent the rest of the morning renovating the fairy colony. Noah built tiny shelves from popsicle sticks. Thomas moved the industrial mixer to the opposite side of the bakery. Elias created a simple sound dampening charm around the fairies' wall. Luna supervised, meaning she sat on a flour sack and criticized everyone. Crooked. It's a fairy shelf, Noah complained. Fairies can perceive angles. Mia returned after school and immediately joined the project. She made tiny curtains. Professor Iris stopped by and somehow became responsible for constructing miniature beds. Rowena brought moss from the forest for mattresses. Mrs. Agnes arrived without anyone calling her. No one knew how she learned about the situation. She simply appeared carrying berries. I heard there are fairies. Noah stared. Who told you? Mrs. Agnes smiled. I know things. Luna looked impressed. By evening, the wall behind the starter jar had become a tiny village. Small wooden doors, miniature lanterns, moss beds, shelves, curtains, a little table, and a sign Mia had carefully written. Belle's Fairy Quarters. Please knock. Thomas stared. They've lived here longer than I have. Crumb nodded. Your grandfather built the first room. Thomas froze. He knew. Of course. Why didn't he tell anyone? Crumb shrugged. He said some partnerships work better without contracts. Elias smiled. That sounded strangely familiar. The next morning, Thomas arrived at Moonleaf Apothecary at 7. This time, he didn't pound on the door. He rang the bell once. Ding. Elias opened it. Thomas held something wrapped in paper. He slowly unwrapped it. A loaf of rosemary bread. Golden. Perfectly risen. Still warm. It's back. Elias smiled. Good. Thomas handed him the loaf. First customer. Later that morning, Belle's bakery reopened properly. The shelves filled. Customers returned. And above the counter appeared a new sign. Our bread is made with flour, water, time, patience, and help from very small employees. Most customers assumed it was a joke. It wasn't. Thomas also changed the bakery schedule. No Sunday preparation. No late night orders. Fewer bulk requests. When a large hotel called asking for 300 loaves by morning, Thomas politely declined. Crumb, listening from the shelf, gave him an approving thumbs up. Weeks later, Belle's bakery developed a new tradition. Every morning before opening, Thomas baked one tiny loaf. It was placed on a miniature plate beside the starter jar. Sometimes the loaf disappeared immediately. Sometimes tiny crumbs were scattered everywhere. And once, Thomas found a note beside the plate. Written in flour. Needs more salt. He laughed for 10 minutes. At Moonleaf Apothecary, Elias added another note to his recipe journal. Not a potion. Not a spell. Just something he wanted to remember. Magic is still work, and anyone who helps deserves rest. Luna read it from beside him. Good. Elias glanced toward her. Do you need more rest? I sleep 16 hours a day. Right. But more cream would improve working conditions. Elias smiled. Nice try. Outside, spring sunlight warmed Willowridge. The bakery smelled like bread again. The apothecary smelled like herbs. And somewhere inside the walls of Belle's bakery, 20 tiny fairies enjoyed their first official day off in nearly 3 years. They spent it doing absolutely nothing. Which, as Luna later pointed out, was sometimes the most magical thing anyone could do. Chapter 6 Letters Never Sent. The letters had been waiting for decades. Elias simply hadn't known there were more of them. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning. Moonleaf Apothecary was closed. No customers. No deliveries. Noah had been specifically told not to come before lunch. Mia was spending the morning with her parents. Professor Iris had returned to the city for several days. And Rowena had gone north briefly to collect some of her belongings. For once, Moonleaf Apothecary was completely peaceful. Elias stood in the kitchen making tea. Luna slept beside the window. The spirit tree rustled gently outside. Everything was perfect. Then, ding! Elias looked toward the front door. The shop was closed. Noah. Luna didn't open her eyes. If it is, pretend we're dead. Ding! Ding! Elias sighed. He walked toward the door. Nobody was there. Instead, a single silver leaf floated outside the window. It tapped the glass. Tap. Then flew away. Elias stared. Luna finally opened one emerald eye. That's worse. The leaf waited outside. Whenever Elias approached, it floated farther away. Toward the garden. He pulled on his coat. Where are we going? Luna jumped from the windowsill. The tree has apparently decided we don't deserve a quiet Sunday. The silver leaf guided them toward the hidden path behind the spirit tree. Ivy moved aside. The old stone passage appeared. Elias immediately understood. The shrine. Spring had transformed the forgotten clearing. Wildflowers covered the forest floor. Blue spirit butterflies drifted among the trees. The ancient stone lanterns glowed softly despite the morning sunlight. At the center stood the restored shrine they had discovered months ago. Elias stepped through the gate. Good morning. The shrine answered with the soft ringing of tiny bells. Luna looked around. It's certainly more cheerful than it used to be. Inside, the shelves remained filled with preserved herbs, old journals, clay jars, and generations of Rowan family records. Elias had spent months slowly cataloging everything. But there were still entire shelves he hadn't examined. The silver leaf drifted toward the back wall. Then stopped. In front of nothing. Elias frowned. There's no shelf. The leaf bumped the wall. Once. Twice. Then a third time. Knock. 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 Luna's ears lifted. Try the key. Elias froze. The key. The one from the lantern market. The mysterious wooden key had been sitting safely in his desk ever since the tiny market spirit handed it to him. Luna had recognized it as belonging to Elowen. But neither knew what it opened. Elias had brought it with him almost without thinking. He pulled it from his pocket. The carved vines along its surface began glowing. A tiny keyhole appeared in the stone wall. Convenient. Magic enjoys theatrics. So I've noticed. Elias inserted the key. Click. The wall opened. Not dramatically. It simply swung inward like a cupboard door. Behind it was a tiny hidden room. Elias stared. Grandma. Luna walked inside. Of course. There was no treasure. No powerful magical artifact. No forbidden spellbook. Only letters. Hundreds of them. Bundles tied with string. Envelopes stacked inside wooden boxes. Packages wrapped in old paper. Postcards. Photographs. Some had stamps. Some didn't. Every single one had been written by Elowen Rowan. And none had ever been sent. Elias stood silently. He picked up the nearest envelope. To Margaret Bell, Willowridge. Another. To Henrietta Vale, Greenbridge. Another. To Mateo Alvarez, San Aurelio. Another. To Akiko Mori, Hoshikawa. Another. To Ibrahim Haddad, Cedar Quarter. Another. Names, places, people Elias had never heard of. Across the country. Some beyond it. Luna sat beside one box. I wondered where she kept these. Elias turned. You knew. I knew she wrote them. Why didn't she send them? Luna looked around the room. That, I don't know. They spent the morning sorting. Some letters were recent. Others were more than 40 years old. Several recipients had undoubtedly passed away. Some addresses no longer existed. Others belonged to magical communities Elias couldn't find on ordinary maps. Yet every envelope had been carefully sealed. Every name written by hand. No drafts. No unfinished sentences. These were letters Elwyn had intended someone to receive. Elias opened none of them. Luna noticed. You could. They aren't mine. You may need to know what's inside to find the recipients. Elias hesitated. Maybe. But he still didn't open one. Not yet. At the bottom of one wooden crate, he discovered a notebook. The cover read, "People I still owe a cup of tea." Elias smiled. That sounds like her. Inside was a list. Dozens of names. Beside each one, a note. Margaret Bell, thank her for teaching me bread starter care. Henrietta Vale, return gardening book. 42 years late. Mateo Alvarez, ask if he ever opened that ridiculous seaside shop. Akiko Mori, send moon mint seeds. She said they wouldn't grow there. Prove her wrong. Ibrahim Haddad, tell him his tea blend was better. Never admitted it. Luna read over his shoulder. She was remarkably stubborn, apparently. Then Elias reached the final page. Only one sentence was written there. If I don't manage to finish these journeys, perhaps someone after me will. Elias stopped. The room became very quiet. Luna stared at the words. She knew. Perhaps. Elias sat on the floor. For several minutes, he said nothing. His grandmother had spent her entire life helping people. She had stayed in Willowridge because ordinary people needed her. But that meant there had been places she never returned to. Friends she never visited again. Promises postponed. Letters written, but never sent. Not because she didn't care. Perhaps because there was always another customer. Another sick child. Another potion. Another tomorrow. Until her tomorrows ran out. Elias looked around the room. How many people did Grandma know? Luna's whiskers twitched. A great many. I thought she barely left Willowridge. Later in life. But when she was young. Luna looked toward the old boxes. Elwyn traveled. Where? Everywhere. That afternoon, Noah arrived. Exactly at 12. Because Elias had told him not to come before lunch, and Noah apparently considered 12:01 legally acceptable. He found Elias carrying boxes from the shrine. What's all this? Letters. Whose? Grandma's. Noah picked up one bundle. That's a lot of letters. They were never sent. Noah became quiet. Oh. Mia arrived soon afterward. Mrs. Agnes came because she saw Noah carrying boxes. Within an hour, the closed apothecary had somehow become busy. Again, Mrs. Agnes adjusted her glasses and examined several envelopes. Margaret Bell. You know her? Elias asked. Thomas's grandmother. The baker. Yes, she's still alive. Mrs. Agnes smiled. Very much so. That evening, Thomas Bell arrived. He stared at the envelope. That's Grandma's name. Do you know where she lives? Of course. She's at Evergreen Retirement Home. Thomas turned the envelope over carefully. She knew your grandmother. Mrs. Agnes laughed. Everyone our age knew Elwyn. Thomas looked mildly offended. I'm 42. I wasn't talking about you. Right. The following morning, Elias made his first delivery. Not a potion. Not tea. A letter. Evergreen Retirement Home stood 20 minutes outside Willowridge. Thomas drove. Elias sat beside him. Luna came because, according to her, someone must confirm historical accuracy. They found Margaret Bell sitting in the garden. 91 years old. Tiny. Sharp-eyed. And currently arguing with a nurse because someone had pruned her roses incorrectly. They've butchered them. Grandma, Thomas sighed. They have. Then Margaret noticed Elias. She stopped. Her eyes moved toward his face. Then his glasses. Then the Rowan pendant around his neck. Elwyn. Elias smiled gently. Her grandson. Margaret became very still. Of course. He handed her the envelope. I found this. Her hands trembled when she saw the handwriting. She wrote to me. Yes. Margaret held it against her chest. For a long time, she didn't open it. Then she laughed. That idiot. Thomas blinked. Grandma. What? She's dead. She was still an idiot. Luna nodded approvingly. I like her. Margaret eventually opened the letter. Elias looked away. He didn't ask what it said. But after reading, Margaret began laughing, then crying, then laughing again. 47 years. She wiped her eyes. 47 years and she finally admits I was right. Thomas leaned forward. About what? None of your business. Luna looked fascinated. I'd like to know. Margaret looked at the cat. Luna. The black cat froze. Margaret smiled. Still stealing cream. I have never stolen anything. Elowen said otherwise. Elowen was unreliable. Before they left, Margaret took Elias's hand. Thank you. I only delivered it. No. She looked at him carefully. You finished something she couldn't. Those words stayed with him. Back at Moonleaf Apothecary, Elias opened the notebook again. People I still owe a cup of tea. He looked at the names. Some nearby, some far away, some perhaps impossible to find. Noah leaned over his shoulder. So, what now? Elias adjusted his glasses. We find them. Noah smiled. Road trip. No. Eventually road trip. Possibly. Yes. Professor Iris returned from the city 2 days later. Elias showed her the letters. She froze when she saw one name. Henrietta Vale. That's my grandmother. Elias stared. Your grandmother. Iris slowly picked up the envelope. She died 12 years ago. I'm sorry. But, Iris turned the envelope over. My mother is still alive. She smiled softly. I think she'd like to have this. 1 letter became 2. 2 became 5. Over the following weeks, Elias began researching addresses. Some recipients were easy to find. Others had moved. Some letters were given to children, grandchildren, old friends. One was returned because nobody recognized the name. Elias kept it safely. He wouldn't throw any away. Then, something strange happened. The more letters Elias delivered, the more the spirit tree changed. Its branches stretched slightly farther. New silver leaves appeared, and sometimes, late at night, tiny glowing paths emerged among its roots. Paths leading outward, beyond Willowridge, beyond the hills. Rowena returned from the north and found Elias surrounded by maps. She stared. What happened while I was gone? Noah answered. We're delivering 40 years of mail. Rowena blinked. Naturally. Elias showed her the notebook. Rowena slowly read the names. Then stopped. Elias. What? She pointed. Near the bottom of the list. One name had been written more carefully than the others. Edith Ashcroft. Beside it, give her the blue teacup. Rowena became silent. Elias remembered the unsent letter upstairs. The one addressed, for Edith. He looked toward her. I think, there's something else we need to deliver. Rowena smiled sadly. Yes, but not today. No. Elias closed the notebook. Not today. Some journeys deserved time. That evening, Elias stood beneath the spirit tree. The mysterious wooden key rested in his palm. It had opened a room. But perhaps, it had also opened something much larger. His grandmother's world, her friendships, her regrets, the roads she'd once traveled, the people she'd loved, and the promises she never had enough time to finish. A silver leaf drifted onto the notebook. Elias smiled. I'll try. The branches rustled, not demanding, not commanding, simply grateful. Inside Moonleaf Apothecary, a new wooden box appeared beside the counter. Mia painted the words herself. Letters still traveling. Inside rested the envelopes whose recipients had yet to be found. Some would travel across town. Some across the country. Perhaps someday, across the sea. But Elias wasn't in a hurry. His grandmother had spent decades writing them. He could give each one the patience it deserved. Because sometimes, words arrived late, sometimes decades late, but that didn't always mean they had lost their meaning. And one by one, the letters Ella and Rowan had never managed to send, finally began finding their way home. Chapter 7 The Fox Beneath the Cherry Tree. The white fox first appeared on a Tuesday. Elias noticed it at exactly 6:17 in the evening. Not because he was watching for foxes. He was watering the window herbs when Luna suddenly stood on the sill. Her ears pointed forward. Her tail became perfectly still. Elias followed her gaze. Across the road, at the edge of the field, sat a white fox. Its fur was pure white despite the muddy spring ground. Its eyes were golden, and around its neck hung a thin red cord. It stared directly at Moonleaf Apothecary. Elias lowered the watering can. Do you know it? No. Is it magical? Obviously. How obviously? Luna glanced at him. It has 3 tails. Elias looked again. Oh. He hadn't noticed those. The fox remained there for several minutes, watching. Then the church bell in Willowridge rang 7 times. The fox stood, turned, and disappeared into the trees. The next evening, it returned. 6:17. Same place. Same golden eyes. Same 3 white tails. Noah was helping Elias carry empty bottles into storage when he noticed it. Oh. He stopped. That's a beautiful fox. It has 3 tails. Noah squinted. Oh. A pause. That's a considerably more interesting fox. Mia arrived at 6:30 with her mother to collect a calming tea. She immediately spotted it. Can I pet it? No, Elias, Luna, and Mia's mother said simultaneously. Mia sighed. Everyone always says that. The fox didn't approach. It simply watched. At 7, it left. Wednesday. 6:17. The fox returned. Thursday. 6:17. Again. Friday. Again. By Saturday, half the regular customers knew about it. Mrs. Agnes had begun leaving biscuits outside. The fox ignored them. Thomas Bell brought bread. Ignored. Noah tried smoked chicken. Ignored. Mia left a strawberry. The fox sniffed it, then walked away. Mia looked offended. It didn't like my strawberry. Luna yawned. It's a fox. Elias tried something simpler. A bowl of water. The fox approached after everyone went inside. It drank, then sat beneath the spirit tree. The ancient branches rustled. The fox looked upward, and bowed. Luna's eyes narrowed. Interesting. On Sunday evening, Elias closed Moonleaf Apothecary early. At 6:10, he sat outside on the porch. Alone. Mostly. Luna occupied the railing. You realize it may simply stare at you again. That's fine. Then this is an inefficient plan. I'm not trying to catch it. Good. 6:17. The fox appeared, but this time, it crossed the road, slowly. Its paws made no sound. It stopped at the garden gate. Elias remained still. Hello. The fox's ears twitched. It looked at Luna. Luna looked back. Neither spoke. Elias waited. Eventually, the fox stepped through the gate. It approached the bowl of water. Drank. Then looked toward Elias. Do you need help? No response. Are you hurt? Nothing. Are you hungry? The fox stared. Luna sighed. It doesn't want anything from you. Elias looked at her. Then why come here? It's waiting for you to notice something. The fox turned. It walked toward the garden gate. Then stopped. Looked back. Walked several more steps. Stopped again. Noah's voice suddenly came from behind the hedge. It's telling you to follow it. Elias jumped. How long have you been there? Noah emerged carrying a flashlight and backpack. 5 minutes. I said I wanted to do this quietly. I am being quiet. You were hiding in a bush. Quietly. Luna looked toward Elias. Unfortunately, he's correct. The fox led them toward Willowridge. Not into the forest. Not toward the hills. Instead, toward the river. The sun was setting, turning the water orange and gold. They followed the riverside path until the houses became sparse. Then the fox stopped beside an old cherry tree. Elias knew it. Everyone in Willowridge did. The tree was enormous. Older than most buildings in town. Every spring, its branches filled with pale pink blossoms. Children played beneath it. Couples took photographs there. Families held picnics. But tonight, the blossoms were closed. Every single one. Despite being the middle of spring. Elias approached the trunk. That's strange. Noah nodded. It was blooming last week. The fox sat beside the roots. Then scratched the earth. Once. Twice. 3 times. Elias crouched. Something's buried here. Luna sniffed the ground. Yes. Magic. Old magic. They didn't dig immediately. Elias returned the next morning. With permission. Mayor Benjamin stood beside the cherry tree holding a cup of coffee. So, there's something magical under our tree. Probably. Is it dangerous? I don't know. The mayor sighed. Wonderful. Then he handed Elias a shovel. Try not to kill the tree. I won't. Professor Iris joined them. So did Rowena. Noah arrived with 2 shovels despite only needing 1. Mia had school and was furious about it. Luna supervised from a root. The white fox sat several meters away. Watching. Elias refused to dig close to the main roots. Instead, he followed the magical traces with a simple detection charm. 20 minutes later, his shovel struck something. Thunk. Everyone stopped. Noah crouched. Treasure. Probably not. Let me hope. They carefully removed the soil. Beneath the cherry tree rested a small wooden box. It was old, very old. The wood should have rotted decades ago. Magic had preserved it. Around the box was tied a faded red cord. The same color as the cord around the fox's neck. Rowena looked toward the animal. Yours. The fox lowered its head. Elias lifted the box. There was no lock. He opened it. Inside were children's things. A wooden spinning top. 3 glass marbles. A faded ribbon. A tiny paper crane protected by magic. A photograph. And a small brass bell. No's excitement faded. Oh. Professor Iris picked up the photograph carefully. It showed 2 children beneath the same cherry tree. A boy. And a girl. Between them, a tiny white fox. 1 tail. Elias looked toward the 3-tailed fox. You. The fox closed its eyes. Mayor Benjamin stared at the photograph. Wait. He leaned closer. I know that boy. Everyone looked at him. Who? My grandfather. The mayor sat beneath the cherry tree. His coffee forgotten. My grandfather grew up here. He pointed toward the girl. That's probably his younger sister. Her name was Amiko. What happened to her? Elias asked. The mayor became quiet. She died when she was young. An illness. Before modern medicine reached places like Willowridge properly. The fox lowered its head. The mayor looked at the little fox in the photograph. I remember a story. My grandfather used to say his sister had a white fox friend. Everyone thought it was imaginary. Luna's tail moved slowly. It wasn't. The story emerged piece by piece. Nearly 80 years ago, Amiko had found an injured fox cub near the river. She brought it food, bandaged its paw, visited every afternoon. The fox wasn't ordinary. It was a young river guardian spirit. But Amiko didn't know. To her, it was simply her friend. She named it Shiro. When Amiko became sick, she could no longer visit the river. So Shiro began coming to the cherry tree near her house. Every evening, waiting. Sometimes Amiko was strong enough to sit beneath the blossoms. Sometimes her brother carried her. The 3 of them played together. Until one spring, Amiko stopped coming. Noah looked toward the fox. You waited. Shiro stared at the buried box. Professor Iris understood first. They made a time capsule. Mayor Benjamin nodded slowly. My grandfather mentioned something like that. They planned to open it together when they were adults. But Amiko never became an adult. Her brother eventually left Willowridge. The box remained. And Shiro continued guarding it. Why now? Rowena asked. Why show us after 80 years? Luna looked toward the cherry tree. Because the tree is dying. Everyone looked up. At first, it appeared healthy. Then Elias noticed tiny cracks along the bark. Branches without new buds. A faint grayness beneath the leaves. Not disease. Exhaustion. The magic preserving the box had slowly begun drawing energy from the trees. Roots. Not intentionally. But after 80 years, even a small spell became a burden. Elias looked at Shiro. You knew. The fox bowed its head. But you couldn't remove it. The red cord around its neck shimmered. Luna explained quietly. Guardian spirits take promises seriously. If Amiko asked Shiro to protect the box until they opened it together, it couldn't simply abandon the promise. Noah frowned. But she can't come back. No. Elias sat beside the fox. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he asked, did she tell you to wait forever? Shiro's ears lifted. Or did she ask you to protect it until she could open it? The fox looked toward him. Those aren't the same promise. The wind moved through the branches. A few closed blossoms trembled. Elias gently placed the old photograph beside Shiro. Amiko couldn't come back, but her family did. He looked toward Mayor Benjamin. Her brother's grandson is here. The mayor slowly knelt. His expression softened. If you've been waiting for our family. He placed a hand over his heart. Thank you. The brass bell inside the box suddenly rang. Chime. No one touched it. Shiro froze. A warm breeze moved beneath the cherry tree. The scent of spring flowers filled the air. Then, a small figure appeared beside the trunk. A little girl, perhaps 8 years old, wearing the same dress as the photograph. No one spoke. Shiro stood. Its 3 tails trembled. The girl smiled. You're still waiting. Shiro made a sound. Not quite a bark. Not quite a cry. Then ran toward her. Amiko knelt. The fox pressed against her. She wrapped both arms around its neck. I told you, we'd open it when we were bigger. She looked at Shiro's three tails. Her smile widened. You got very big. Noah wiped his eyes. Luna didn't comment this time. The girl couldn't remain long. She was only a memory. A small piece of magic preserved in the bell. But it was enough. Amiko touched the red cord around Shiro's neck. You don't have to wait anymore. The cord came loose. It floated into her hands. Then became dozens of tiny red lights. Shiro stared. Amiko smiled. Go play. And disappeared among the cherry blossoms. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, pop, a single flower opened. Then another. And another. Thousands followed. The ancient cherry tree erupted into bloom. Pink petals filled the air. Mayor Benjamin stared upward. Professor Iris smiled. Rowena quietly wiped her eyes. Noah didn't bother pretending anymore. Shiro stood beneath the falling petals. The fox looked lighter somehow. Younger. Its three tails moved freely behind it. Elias crouched. What will you do now? Shiro approached him. It pressed its forehead briefly against his hand. Then walked toward the river. Halfway there, it stopped, looked back, and for the first time, its mouth opened. Thank you. Then it vanished into the sunlight. The time capsule wasn't buried again. Mayor Benjamin brought it to the town hall. The photograph was copied and added to Willowridge's local archive. The original remained with the family. The toys were carefully preserved. And the brass bell was returned beneath the cherry tree. Not buried. It hung from a low branch, where the wind could reach it. A week later, Elias walked past the river at sunset. The cherry tree was still blooming. Children played beneath it. Families sat on blankets. Someone had tied small wishes to the branches. Then Elias noticed something. A white fox sat across the river. Three tails. No red cord. Beside it, two smaller fox spirits chased each other through the grass. Elias smiled. Go play. Shiro's ears twitched. Then the fox turned and joined them. That evening, Elias returned to Moonleaf Apothecary. Luna sat beneath the spirit tree. Did you see him? Yes. And he seems happy. Good. Elias sat beside her. After a moment, he asked. Luna, if Grandma had asked you to wait for her, would you? Luna became silent. Then she looked toward the glowing windows of Moonleaf Apothecary. No. Elias blinked. Really? Your grandmother would have hated that. Luna's tail curled around her paws. She would have told me to keep living. A pause. Then probably demanded I supervise you. Elias smiled. That sounds more believable. Above them, the spirit tree rustled softly. Far away, the cherry tree beside the river answered. Two old guardians. Two promises. Two places carrying memories of people who were gone. But memories, Elias was learning, were not chains. They were not meant to keep someone standing in the same place forever. Sometimes, the kindest way to honor a promise was knowing when you had fulfilled it. And beneath the spring moon, somewhere along the riverbank, a white fox who had waited nearly 80 years finally ran simply because it wanted to. Chapter 8 Spring Potion Festival. The poster appeared on Moonleaf Apothecary's front door on Monday morning. Elias had not put it there. He knew this because he was still holding the key when he found it. He stared at the brightly colored paper. Willowridge Spring Potion Festival. Herbs, tea, workshops, food, music. This year, learn something new. And beneath that, in considerably larger letters, Children's Herbal Workshop. With Elias Rowan of Moonleaf Apothecary. Elias remained completely motionless. Luna sat beside his shoes. Interesting. I didn't agree to this. I assumed. I definitely didn't agree to this. Perhaps saying it twice will remove the poster. Elias slowly looked toward town. Mayor Benjamin. 20 minutes later, Mayor Benjamin sat inside Moonleaf Apothecary holding a cup of tea. Elias sat opposite him. The poster rested between them. The mayor smiled. Elias did not. Explain. Before you become upset. I'm not upset. That's somehow worse. Unlike the larger Harvest Potion Festival, the Spring Festival wasn't a competition. There were no judges, no medals, no potion rankings. It had always been a smaller community event welcoming the new growing season. Gardeners exchanged seeds. Herbalists demonstrated simple remedies. Local shops set up stalls. Children planted flowers. And this year, Mayor Benjamin wanted workshops. You've become very popular with families, he explained. Elias looked genuinely confused. Why? The mayor stared. You help them. Yes. You remember their names. Yes. You give children honey sticks when they're nervous. Elias paused. Sometimes. And you spent an entire afternoon teaching my niece why she shouldn't eat glow moss. She asked. Exactly. The mayor pushed the poster closer. Nothing complicated. Teach them basic herbs. Safe remedies. How to make tea. Maybe something fun. Elias looked horrified. How many children? The mayor suddenly became interested in his tea. 20. Elias narrowed his eyes. Benjamin. 32. 46 registered. Elias slowly removed his glasses. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. Luna jumped onto the table. I would like it recorded that I am enjoying this. The bell rang. Ding. Mia entered. Good morning. She noticed the poster. Her eyes widened. Then, you're teaching a class. No. Mayor Benjamin smiled. Yes. Mia turned toward Elias. Can I help? Elias looked at her. Then at the mayor. Then at the poster. 46 children. His expression changed. Mia. Yes. How busy are you Saturday? Her face lit up. And that was how Elias Rowan, a quiet witch who preferred speaking to plants, found himself preparing to teach 46 children. Preparing the workshop. Mia took her role extremely seriously. She arrived after school carrying a notebook titled, Mr. Elias's Spring Herb Class. Elias stared. You made lesson notes. Yes. She opened it. Page 1. Rule 1. Do not eat random plants. Elias nodded. Good. Page 2. Rule 2. Especially glowing ones. Also good. Page 3. Rule 3. Ask Mr. Elias first. Luna looked over the notebook. Surprisingly competent. Mia beamed. Thank you. That wasn't entirely praise. I'll take it. Elias decided the workshop needed to remain simple. No potion cauldrons. No dangerous ingredients. No spells requiring mana. Instead, the children would learn about herbs anyone could safely use. Chamomile, mint, lavender, rosemary, lemon balm, ginger, and a few harmless magical plants. Moon mint, giggle grass, sleepy clover. Professor Iris helped prepare illustrated cards. Rowena volunteered to supervise the magical plants. Noah offered to help. Everyone became silent. What? Noah asked. Luna answered first. Your history with plants. One cactus. It died. I know. Eventually, Elias gave Noah responsibility for tables and chairs. Finally, Noah crossed his arms. A task worthy of me. You carry furniture. You could have phrased it better. Friday evening. Moonleaf Apothecary looked less like a shop and more like a classroom. Small herb pots covered every table. Paper labels were stacked near the counter. Mortars and pestles had been cleaned. Tiny cloth bags waited to be filled with herbs. Mia carefully counted everything. 46. Elias added 5 more. 51. Why? In case something breaks. Noah raised his hand. Reasonable. Luna looked at him. Primarily because you're attending. Festival morning. Saturday arrived with perfect spring weather. Willowridge's town square transformed overnight. Colorful ribbons stretched between buildings. Flower garlands decorated lampposts. Stalls lined the streets. Bell's Bakery sold flower-shaped pastries. Mrs. Agnes had somehow produced enough pies to feed a small army. Local musicians played near the fountain. Children ran everywhere carrying tiny watering cans. The old cherry tree beside the river remained covered in pink blossoms. And above it all, the awakened spirit tree's silver leaves shimmered on the distant hill behind Moonleaf Apothecary. Elias stood beneath a canvas awning. 46 children stared at him. He stared back. Mia whispered, "Say good morning." "I know. You've been standing there for 10 seconds." "I know." Luna sat beneath the demonstration table. "This is delightful." Elias adjusted his glasses, then took a breath. "Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Elias." He visibly flinched. Noah turned away to hide his laughter. "My name is Elias." A little boy raised his hand. "Are you really a witch?" "Yes." Another hand. "Can you turn people into frogs?" "No." "Can Luna?" Everyone looked at the black cat. Luna replied, "Possibly." Elias immediately corrected her. "No." A third child raised her hand. "Have you fought a dragon?" "No." "A monster?" "No." "A demon?" "No." The children looked disappointed. Elias thought, "I once removed aphids from 23 moon mint plants." Silence. Mia clapped. A few children joined. Noah whispered. Tough crowd. Elias picked up a small sprig of mint. Magic isn't always about fighting things. That caught their attention. Sometimes, it's knowing what helps someone sleep. He held up chamomile. Knowing what smells can help someone relax. Lavender. What plants can settle an upset stomach? Ginger. And knowing, he held up an unidentified red berry. What absolutely should not go in your mouth? Every child's hand shot up. What is it? Fireberry. What happens if you eat it? Your tongue feels like it's burning for 3 hours. A boy whispered. Cool. No. The first activity was identifying herbs by smell. It became chaos almost immediately. This one smells like toothpaste. That's mint. This one smells like grandma. That's lavender. Mrs. Agnes, passing nearby, looked offended. I heard that. One child accidentally smelled giggle grass. He started laughing. Then the child beside him laughed because he was laughing. Within 30 seconds, half the class was laughing. Elias looked toward Rowena. How long? About 2 minutes. Noah was already laughing too. You didn't smell it. I know. Eventually, order returned. Mostly. The second activity was making a simple comfort sachet. No potion. No spell. Just dried lavender, chamomile, rosemary, and a tiny amount of moon mint sealed inside a cloth pouch. When you're worried, Elias explained, you can hold it and breathe slowly. A little girl raised her hand. Does it make worries disappear? Elias paused. No. She looked disappointed. But, he crouched beside her table. It can make them feel a little smaller. She thought about that, then smiled. That's okay. Mia moved between tables helping younger children tie their sachets. She showed them how much lavender to use. How to crush rosemary gently. How not to spill moon mint everywhere. Elias watched her. Only months ago, Mia had entered Moonleaf Apothecary curious about everything. Now, she was teaching another child how to care for herbs. Professor Iris noticed Elias watching. Good assistant. Elias smiled. Very. Then came the final activity. Every child received a tiny pot, a scoop of soil, and one seed. Sleepy clover. The plant wasn't actually sedative. It simply folded its leaves at sunset as though going to bed. Elias demonstrated. Make a small hole, not too deep. Place the seed inside. Cover it gently. Then water. A boy immediately emptied his entire watering can into the pot. Elias stared at the miniature swamp. Less water. Oh. Noah patted Elias's shoulder. Now you understand my cactus. No. Mia stood beside Elias. Can I tell them the last part? He nodded. She turned toward the children. Plants aren't machines. Everyone quieted. They don't grow faster just because you want them to. Elias recognized the words. He had told her something similar when she first brought her moon daisy. Mia continued. You have to water them. Give them sunlight. Let them rest. And, she smiled. Be patient. Elias looked at her proudly. Exactly. After the workshop ended, every child left carrying one herb sachet, one sleepy clover, one illustrated guide, and strict instructions not to eat mysterious glowing berries. Elias sank into a chair. I survived. Luna jumped onto his lap. Barely. Mia looked horrified. But we have the afternoon group. Elias froze. What? Noah burst out laughing. The afternoon group was smaller. 23 children. Elias considered that an improvement. A different kind of festival. When the final workshop ended, Elias finally had time to walk around. Unlike the harvest festival, nobody was trying to prove anything. There were no elaborate potions. No judges. No pressure. An elderly herbalist taught teenagers how to make salve for insect bites. Professor Iris demonstrated magical soil testing. Rowena showed children how northern witches dried herbs during winter. Thomas Bell let families decorate bread. Mrs. Agnes ran a tea stall that somehow had a permanent queue. Even Luna had acquired an audience. 5 children sat around her. Can you do magic? Yes. Show us. No. Please. No. One child offered her cream. Luna paused. Continue negotiating. Near sunset, Mayor Benjamin stepped onto the small stage. Before we close, I'd like to thank everyone who taught something today. The crowd applauded. Elias attempted to stand behind Noah. Noah immediately moved. Don't you dare, traitor. The mayor continued. Willowridge has always had magic. Sometimes obvious. sometimes quiet, but knowledge only survives when someone is willing to share it. Elias looked around. Children carried plants through the square. Parents read herb guides. Teenagers compared handmade remedies. An elderly witch showed a young pharmacist how to identify magical contamination in ordinary herbs. Old knowledge, modern lives, existing together. Then, a little girl from Elias's morning workshop ran toward him. Mr. Elias. She held up her sleepy clover. It opened. A tiny green shoot had emerged. Elias blinked. Already. Professor Iris leaned closer. That's unusually fast. Then another child shouted. Mine too. Another. Mine. All across the square, 46 tiny pots began sprouting. Then 23 more. Hundreds of small green leaves unfolded. At the same moment, the spirit tree on the hill shimmered brightly. Silver light drifted across Willowridge. The crowd fell quiet. Luna looked toward the tree. It approves. Elias smiled. The sleepy clover leaves immediately folded shut. Every child gasped. They're sleeping. Mia laughed. Because it's sunset. The festival ended beneath strings of lanterns. Music continued softly. Families ate together. The river reflected the evening lights. And Elias found himself sitting beneath the old cherry tree with Mia, Noah, Iris, Rowena, Luna, and several paper cups of tea. Mia leaned against the trunk. That was fun. Elias looked exhausted. Was it? Yes. Noah grinned. You liked it. Parts. Which parts? Elias thought. The plants. Everyone groaned. He smiled. And he looked toward Mia. Watching someone else teach. Mia sat up. Me. You did well. Her face brightened. Really? Really? Professor Iris sipped her tea. Perhaps you'll have an apprentice someday. Elias nearly inhaled his drink. No. Mia looked offended. Why not? I'm 24. That's old. Everyone became silent. Noah turned away. Rowena covered her mouth. Professor Iris looked delighted. Elias stared at Mia. I see. Luna's tail flicked. Devastating. Later that night, Moonleaf Apothecary was finally quiet again. Elias placed one leftover sleepy clover on the windowsill. Its leaves were folded tightly. Beside it rested Mia's workshop notebook. He opened to the final page. She had written, Things Mr. Elias taught us. 1. Don't eat random plants. 2. Magic doesn't have to be big to help. 3. Worries don't always disappear, but they can become smaller. 4. Plants need patience. 5. People probably do too. Elias stared at the last sentence. Then smiled. He closed the notebook carefully. Outside, the spirit tree rustled. Across Willowridge, 69 children placed tiny sleepy clovers beside bedroom windows. Some remembered the names of herbs. Some forgot. Some would grow their plants successfully. Others would accidentally drown them. But perhaps years from now, one child would remember how moon mint smelled. Another would remember how to make a comfort sachet. Another might teach someone else. And little pieces of knowledge would continue traveling. Not hidden away in old books. Not locked inside forgotten shrines. But carried forward, from one ordinary person to another. Exactly where Elo and Rowan had always believed magic belonged. Chapter 9 The Wandering Musician. The music reached Moonleaf Apothecary before the musician did. It was Wednesday afternoon. Elias stood behind the counter filling small jars with dried moon mint while Mia sat at her usual table finishing homework. Noah was repairing a loose shelf. Or, more accurately, he had been repairing it for 40 minutes. Why do you have 3 screws left? Elias asked. Noah stared at his hand. Then at the shelf. Extras. They weren't extras. Manufacturers include extras. I made the shelf. Noah slowly looked at him. Then why did you give me too many screws? I didn't. Luna lifted her head from the windowsill. This is becoming painful. Then, a violin began to play. Everyone stopped. The melody was faint. It came from somewhere down the road toward Willowridge. Slow, warm, a little lonely. Elias couldn't identify the song. But something about it felt strangely familiar. Mia lowered her pencil. That's pretty. Noah walked toward the window. Someone's playing near the road. Luna stood. Her ears pointed forward. Elias noticed immediately. What? The black cat didn't answer. She stared toward the garden. Outside, the spirit tree's silver leaves had begun moving. There was no wind. The violin continued. One silver leaf detached. Then another. Then dozens. They didn't fall. Instead, they floated toward the road, like tiny silver birds following the sound. Elias stared. That's new. Luna jumped down. We should probably investigate. Noah grabbed his jacket. Finally, Elias looked at him. You sound too excited. I've spent 40 minutes fighting a shelf. You lost. Exactly. They found the musician near the old stone bridge. A young man sat on the low wall overlooking the river. A worn violin rested beneath his chin. His clothes were practical. Brown boots, dark trousers, a faded blue coat patched at one elbow. Beside him sat a large traveling case covered with stickers from towns and cities across the country. But the strangest part wasn't the musician. It was his audience. 3 rabbits sat in the grass. Several birds lined the bridge railing. A pair of river spirits floated just above the water. A tiny moss creature sat on a stone. And Shiro, the 3-tailed white fox, rested beneath a nearby tree. All completely silent, listening. Noah whispered, "He's popular." The musician finished the song. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then the birds began chirping. The rabbits hopped away. The river spirits disappeared beneath the surface. Shiro stood, stretched, and vanished into the trees. The young man lowered his violin. Only then did he notice Elias and the others. Oh, he smiled. Hello. Elias adjusted his glasses. Hello. The man's gaze moved toward Luna. Then toward the silver leaves floating around Elias. His eyebrows rose. I assume those are yours. Elias looked up. The spirit tree's leaves had followed them all the way from Moonleaf. Apparently. The musician introduced himself as Adrian Solis. No title. No magical rank. No impressive lineage. Simply, Adrian. He had been traveling for nearly 7 years. Town to town, city to city, sometimes performing in cafes, sometimes busking at train stations, sometimes playing at magical gatherings, and occasionally, playing for creatures who couldn't pay. Noah looked toward the rabbits disappearing into the field. Did they at least tip? One gave me a carrot once. Generous. It was half-eaten. Less generous. Elias looked at the violin. Is it enchanted? Adrian smiled. No. The bow. No. The strings. Ordinary. Mia frowned. Then why do magical creatures like your music? Adrian considered the question. I listened to them first. Mia blinked. How? Most creatures have rhythms. He pointed toward the river. Water spirits like repeating melodies. Forest spirits prefer irregular ones. House spirits like songs they've heard before. And dragons? Noah asked. Adrian's expression became serious. Very loud. Everyone waited. Then Adrian smiled. I'm joking. Noah looked disappointed. Adrian accepted Elias's invitation for tea. Mostly because rain began falling. By 4 o'clock, he was sitting inside Moonleaf Apothecary with a cup of honey tea. His violin case rested near the fireplace. Luna sat opposite him, staring. Adrian stared back. After a while, he asked, "Do I owe her money?" "No," Elias said. "Then why is she looking at me like that?" "She does that." Luna's tail flicked. "I've heard you before." Adrian's smile faded slightly. "Where?" 30 years ago. The room became quiet. Adrian looked approximately 28. Noah frowned. "That's impossible." Adrian scratched his cheek. "Not exactly." He reached beneath his shirt and pulled out a small wooden pendant. A musical note had been carved into it. Long story. Luna narrowed her eyes. Forest blessing. Adrian nodded. "When I was a child." Professor Iris, who had just entered the shop, stopped in the doorway. "A longevity blessing." "Not quite." Adrian laughed. "I still age. Just. Slowly." Noah stared. "How old are you?" 46. Noah looked offended. "You look younger than me." "Thank you." That wasn't a compliment. Luna jumped onto the table. "Where did you play 30 years ago?" Adrian thought. "I traveled with my teacher then. Mostly small magical communities. Shrines. Markets. Old witch roads." Luna's eyes sharpened. "The Rowan Road." Adrian became still. "Rowan." His gaze shifted toward Elias. Then toward Elowen's photograph. His expression changed. "Oh." He stood and approached the picture. "I remember her." Elias had stopped being surprised when strangers said that. "Mostly. You knew my grandmother." "Not well." Adrian smiled. "But she fed us." Luna muttered. "Of course she did." 30 years ago, Adrian and his teacher had passed through Willowridge. They stayed only 3 nights. At the time, Adrian was learning an old style of music called resonance playing. It wasn't a spell, not exactly. It used music to harmonize with magical environments. Old trees, spirit roads, shrines, familiars, places where magic accumulated memories. Adrian had practiced beneath the spirit tree. Back then, the tree had still been dormant. Your grandmother sat nearby every evening, Adrian said. She never interrupted. She just listened. Elias smiled. That sounds like her. On the last night, she asked me to play something. What? Adrian looked toward the garden. A song she said the tree had forgotten. Luna became completely still. You remember it? Some of it. Adrian picked up his violin. The melody was incomplete. Your grandmother hummed what she remembered. My teacher helped arrange it. But, he looked toward the spirit tree. We never finished. Elias opened the garden door. Would you try? Adrian hesitated, then smiled. I was hoping you'd ask. They gathered beneath the spirit tree at sunset. Elias, Mia, Noah, Professor Iris, Rowena, who arrived after hearing there was something happening with the tree. Luna sat closest to the trunk. Adrian stood beneath the silver branches. He lifted his violin, then began. The first notes were simple, slow, almost like a lullaby. The spirit tree didn't react. Adrian continued. The melody climbed, fell, paused, then returned. One branch moved. Luna's ears lifted. Adrian changed the rhythm. A second branch rustled. Silver leaves began glowing. Elias felt mana spreading through the garden. Not violently, not even strongly. It felt like someone waking from a dream. Then Adrian reached the unfinished part. The melody stopped. His bow hovered. I don't remember. Silence. The spirit tree waited. Adrian lowered the violin slightly. I'm sorry. Then, Luna began humming. Everyone looked at her. Noah's mouth opened. Luna glared. Say one word and I'll bite you. He closed it. Her voice was quiet, almost too quiet to hear. But the melody continued where Adrian's ended. Adrian listened, then raised his violin. He followed her. One note, then another. Luna's humming grew steadier. The spirit tree began to shine. Elias closed his eyes. And suddenly, he smelled summer. Not the current spring garden. A summer from long ago. Warm soil, lavender, tea. He heard laughter. A woman's laughter. His grandmother. He opened his eyes. The garden had changed. Not physically. Memories shimmered around them. Transparent. Soft. Like reflections on water. A young Elowen Rowan stood beneath the spirit tree. Beside her, a younger Luna. Edith Ashcroft sat on the grass reading a book. Two children chased glowing insects. An unfamiliar witch watered herbs. An elderly man slept beneath the tree. More images appeared. Different years. Different seasons. People Elias had never met. Generations of Rowans. Customers. Travelers. Witches. Ordinary villagers. All passing beneath the same branches. Mia whispered. The tree remembers them. Professor Iris's eyes filled with wonder. All of them. Adrian continued playing. The memories changed. Moonleaf Apothecary with its yellow door. Elowen chasing Edith with a broom. Luna drinking milk beneath the porch. Arthur and Clara sharing tea beside the window. A younger Mrs. Agnes carrying a basket. Thomas Bell's grandfather delivering bread. Small moments. Ordinary moments. Preserved by ancient magic. Then, Elias saw himself. A small boy, perhaps 6, sitting beneath the dormant spirit tree. His grandmother knelt beside him. Young Elias was crying. He had scraped his knee. Elowen cleaned it gently. There. Better. The child sniffled. A little. Good. She kissed his forehead. A little better is still better. Adult Elias stood completely still. He had forgotten that day. Completely. But the tree hadn't. The melody softened. The memories slowly faded. Before the final image disappeared, Elowen looked toward where Elias stood. It was only a memory. It couldn't actually see him. He knew that. Still, for one impossible second, she smiled, then vanished. Adrian lowered his violin. Nobody spoke. Noah wiped his face. This time he didn't make excuses. Mia leaned against Elias. Rowena quietly held one of the spirit tree's fallen leaves. Professor Iris simply stared upward. Luna sat beneath the trunk. Her eyes closed. Then the spirit tree did something none of them expected. It played the melody back. Not with instruments. With leaves. branches, wind. Tiny chiming sounds spread through the garden. The completed song. Adrian's eyes widened. It remembered. Luna opened her eyes. No. She looked toward Elias. It remembered that we remembered. That night, Adrian stayed for dinner. Noah demanded stories about traveling musicians. Mia asked if she could learn violin. Professor Iris asked approximately 70 academic questions. Rowena wanted to know about Northern Spirit songs. Luna pretended she had not hummed in public. Elias made soup. Adrian ate 3 bowls. Your grandmother did this too. What? Fed people until they couldn't move. Elias smiled. Family tradition. Before bed, Adrian opened his old traveling journal. He added one sentence beneath an entry written 30 years earlier. Willowridge, the rowan tree. Song unfinished. He crossed out the final word. Then wrote, finished at last. The following morning, Adrian prepared to leave. Mia looked disappointed. You're already going. I'm a wandering musician. Where? Adrian shrugged. Wherever sounds interesting. Noah pointed toward the north. Apparently old magical roads are waking. Adrian smiled. I've heard. Elias looked at him. You know, musicians hear things. Useful things. Mostly gossip. Before leaving, Adrian handed Elias a folded piece of paper. What is this? The melody. The tree's song. Adrian nodded. Keep it. Elias looked at the musical notation. I can't play violin. You don't need to. Then why? Someone else might. Adrian walked down the road. His violin case over one shoulder. At the bend, he stopped. Turned. Then played 4 familiar notes. From the garden, the spirit tree answered. Chime, 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 chime. Adrian laughed. Then continued toward the hills. For several days afterward, Moonleaf Apothecary felt slightly different. The spirit tree occasionally hummed. Not loudly. Usually in the evenings. Sometimes Elias recognized the melody. Sometimes he didn't. Perhaps they were other songs. Older songs. Memories waiting to be remembered. Elias framed Adrian's sheet music. He placed it beside his grandmother's photograph. Underneath, he wrote, the song the tree remembered. Luna inspected it. Sentimental. Yes, I wasn't criticizing. Elias looked at her. Would you hum it again sometime? No. Why? I have standards. You did it once. Historical emergency. Elias smiled. That evening, as the sun disappeared beyond Willowridge, a violin could faintly be heard somewhere beyond the hills. And beneath the awakened spirit tree, silver leaves answered with a song carried through generations. Not a spell, not a warning, not a prophecy, just a melody. One that had survived because people remembered pieces of it. And because sometimes, when one person forgot the next note, someone else remembered enough to continue. Chapter 10 The Lost Familiar. The young witch arrived at Moonleaf Apothecary crying so hard she couldn't explain what was wrong. It was just after 9 on Saturday morning. Elias had barely finished turning the sign to open when the front door flew inward. Ding! A girl stumbled inside. She looked around 17. Her dark blonde hair was tangled from running, her boots were muddy, and a blue traveling cloak hung crookedly from one shoulder. She clutched an empty wicker carrier against her chest. Please. She gasped for breath. My familiar. Elias immediately came around the counter. Sit down. I can't. You're shaking. But Clover. We'll find Clover. The girl stared at him. You don't even know who Clover is. No. Elias pulled out a chair. But you'll explain better if you can breathe. Luna, sitting on the counter, nodded. Annoyingly sensible. 5 minutes later, the girl sat with both hands wrapped around a cup of warm lemon balm tea. Her name was Sophie Hart. She was a young witch from Greenbridge, a city almost 2 hours away. And Clover was her familiar. What kind of familiar? Elias asked. Sophie swallowed. A horned rabbit. Noah, who had just entered carrying a crate, stopped. A what? Sophie reached for her phone. She showed them a photograph. A small cream-colored rabbit sat in her lap. 2 tiny antler-like horns grew from its forehead. Its ears were unusually long. Around its neck was a green ribbon with a silver bell. Mia, arriving behind Noah, immediately whispered. It's adorable. Luna looked at the photograph. Young moon hair. Sophie nodded. She's only 3. Professor Iris arrived 20 minutes later. Rowena followed soon after. By then, Sophie had managed to explain what happened. She and Clover had traveled to Willowridge that morning to visit the Spring Herb Exchange. At the bus stop, a truck backfired. Bang! Clover panicked. She escaped the carrier, ran across the field, and disappeared into the forest. I followed her. Sophie looked miserable. But I lost the trail. Can you sense your familiar bond? Rowena asked. Sophie shook her head. It's there, but weak. She's frightened. Elias looked toward Luna. Can you track her? Possibly. Sophie immediately stood. Please. Luna jumped from the counter. Sit. Sophie sat. Luna's tail flicked. Good. Noah covered his mouth. Elias pretended not to notice. They began with the carrier. Luna sniffed the blanket inside. Then the ribbon Sophie kept as a spare. Forest. We knew that, Noah said. Luna glared. Would you like to track her? Continue. Elias packed supplies. Healing salve. Moon mint. A small bottle of calming potion. Bandages. Water. Food. Professor Iris brought detection charms. Rowena carried her staff. Noah packed flashlights and rope. Mia appeared wearing hiking boots. Elias looked at her. No. Her face fell. But, the forest is large. I can help. Mia. She crossed her arms. You said magic doesn't have to be big to help. Elias froze. Noah slowly turned away. Professor Iris suddenly became fascinated by the ceiling. Luna looked delighted. She has you. Elias sighed. Stay beside me. Mia smiled immediately. Okay. Into the forest. The forest surrounding Willowridge wasn't particularly dangerous. Usually, there were hiking trails, picnic areas, marked paths. But deeper inside, old magic remained. Small spirits, hidden clearings, forgotten paths, places ordinary people sometimes walked past without ever noticing. And recently, those places had become more active. Luna led. Her nose remained close to the ground. Elias followed with Mia. Sophie walked beside Rowena. Professor Iris carried a small brass compass enchanted to detect familiar magic. Noah brought up the rear. After 20 minutes, the compass needle moved. East, Iris said. They changed direction. They found the first sign near a fallen log. Tiny paw prints. Sophie crouched. Clover. The prints disappeared beneath ferns. Beside them, a cluster of mushrooms had been nibbled. Elias examined them. Safe. Sophie released a breath. She ate. That's good. They continued. An hour passed. Then another. The forest became denser. Sophie grew quieter. Eventually, she whispered. This is my fault. Elias looked at her. No. I should have held the carrier better. You didn't know the truck would make that noise. But familiars trust their witches. She stared at the ground. And I lost her. Luna stopped walking. She turned. Incorrect. Sophie blinked. What? Familiars are not luggage. Luna walked toward her. We run. We hide. We become frightened. We make poor decisions. Noah whispered. Some more than others. Luna ignored him. A familiar choosing you does not mean you control everything that happens to them. Sophie looked toward her. But, your responsibility is to search. Luna turned back toward the trail. Which you are doing. Elias smiled faintly. He had never heard Luna sound quite so gentle. Naturally. She ruined it immediately. Now stop wasting daylight feeling guilty. Sophie blinked. Then laughed through her tears. Okay. The wrong rabbit. Around noon, Mia spotted something. There. A cream-colored shape moved beneath a bush. Sophie ran. Clover. Everyone followed. The creature jumped into the open. It was a rabbit. Cream-colored. Long ears. Sophie stopped. That's not Clover. No horns. The rabbit stared at them. Noah stared back. We've inconvenienced him. The rabbit hopped away. Sorry. Mia called. They ate lunch beside a stream. Thomas Bell had packed bread for them after hearing about the search. Mrs. Agnes somehow heard too and sent sandwiches. No one questioned how. Sophie barely ate. Elias handed her half a sandwich. You need energy. I'm not hungry. Clover will be upset if she finds you fainting. Sophie hesitated. Then ate. Mia sat beside Luna. Did you ever get lost? Luna looked at her. No. Elias raised an eyebrow. Luna sighed. Once. Noah leaned closer. When? 41 years ago. What happened? Elowen found me. How? She shook a cream bottle. Everyone laughed. Luna looked offended. It was effective. A broken bell. The trail changed after lunch. They found fur caught on a thorn. Cream-colored. Then, a tiny silver object in the mud. Sophie gasped. Clover's bell. She picked it up. The clasp was broken. Her hands started shaking again. Rowena examined it. No blood. Elias checked the nearby thorns. Nothing suggests injury. Professor Iris looked at the compass. The familiar signature is stronger. Sophie closed her hand around the bell. She's close. They moved faster. The trail led away from the ordinary forest path. Toward older trees. Toward the foothills. Then Luna suddenly stopped. Her fur rose. Something's wrong. Noah grabbed the rope. What? Quiet. Everyone listened. At first, nothing. Then, a faint sound. Ching. Mia frowned. Another bell. Ching. Ching. Not one bell. Many. They pushed through the trees. And discovered a path. An old stone road. Half buried beneath moss. Silver symbols glowed faintly along its edges. Professor Iris went still. One of the old roads. Elias remembered the lantern market. The road's return. The glowing paths beneath the spirit tree. The mysterious key. His grandmother's letters. And now, this. Sophie stepped forward. Clover. The familiar bond suddenly pulled her toward the road. She ran. Sophie. Elias called. They followed. The old road twisted between trees. It shouldn't have fit inside the forest. Elias knew that immediately. They walked perhaps 200 meters. Yet Willowridge suddenly felt very far away. The air became warmer. Wildflowers appeared despite the shade. Tiny bells hung from branches. Then, they found Clover. The little horned rabbit sat in the middle of the road. Completely unharmed. Surrounded by approximately 30 tiny forest spirits. Sophie stopped. Clover. Clover looked up. Her ears lifted. Then, she bounded forward. Sophie dropped to her knees. Clover. The moon hare launched herself into Sophie's arms. Sophie hugged her tightly. I found you. Clover made a tiny chirping noise. Sophie began crying again. This time, nobody told her to stop. Mia smiled. Noah released the breath he'd been holding. Professor Iris lowered her compass. Rowena leaned against her staff. Elias adjusted his glasses. Luna walked toward Clover. The rabbit sniffed her. Luna sniffed back. Then smacked Clover lightly on the forehead with one paw. Clover squeaked. Sophie stared. Luna, that was for making us walk 4 hours. Clover hid inside Sophie's cloak. But something was strange. The forest spirits surrounding them weren't leaving. They stared at Elias. All of them. Tiny moss people. Glowing insects. A spirit shaped like a squirrel with flowers growing from its tail. A floating lantern creature. Dozens of eyes. Watching. Noah shifted closer. Why are they looking at us? Luna corrected him. They're looking at Elias. Elias sighed. Of course they are. One tiny spirit approached. It carried something. A small sprig of silver leaves. It placed them at Elias's feet. Then bowed. Another did the same. Then another. Soon, a small pile of herbs rested before him. Professor Iris whispered. Offerings. For what? Rowena looked down the ancient road. I don't think they're thanking you. She pointed. Farther ahead, the road disappeared behind a veil of silver mist. Beyond it, something glowed. Buildings, perhaps, or lanterns. Elias couldn't tell. Luna stepped in front of him. Not today. The spirits looked toward her. He's not following the road. One spirit tilted its head. Luna's tail flicked. You heard me. Slowly. The silver mist closed. The distant lights disappeared. The spirits seemed disappointed, but they moved aside. Noah looked at Elias. What was that? I don't know. Professor Iris adjusted her glasses. A destination. Helpful. I try. They returned to Willowridge before sunset. The journey back took only 40 minutes. Noah noticed first. We walked 4 hours getting there. Professor Iris looked toward the forest. The old roads don't care much for ordinary distance. Mia frowned. That's rude. Luna nodded. Extremely. Back at Moonleaf Apothecary. Sophie sat beside the fireplace with Clover wrapped in a towel. Elias checked the familiar carefully. No injuries. A few burrs. Muddy paws. Hungry. Very tired. Otherwise healthy. Sophie looked like she might cry again. She's okay. She's okay. Elias prepared a tiny bowl of chopped herbs. Clover immediately ate. Sophie laughed. You scared me. The rabbit continued eating. Do you even care? Clover paused, then hopped into Sophie's lap. Sophie melted immediately. Fine. Before leaving, Sophie replaced Clover's broken bell with the spare green ribbon. But she didn't attach another bell. Elias noticed. No bell. Sophie shook her head. I thought I needed to always know where she was. She stroked Clover's ears. But maybe, I should trust her too. Luna nodded once. Approval. Sophie bowed deeply. Thank you. Elias smiled. Everyone helped. She looked around. Noah, Mia, Iris, Rowena, Luna. Then back to Elias. I don't know how to repay you. You don't need to. Luna immediately said. Carrots. Elias looked at her. What? For Clover. Clover's ears lifted. Luna looked away. She'll need travel snacks. Sophie smiled. After they left, Mia placed the broken silver bell on the counter. Sophie forgot this. Elias picked it up. No. He examined the tiny bell. Inside, something had been carved. A symbol. A crescent moon intertwined with a flowering branch. The same symbol from the forest shrine. The same symbol from the abandoned stall at the lantern market. Professor Iris became serious. That wasn't there before. How do you know? Sophie showed us the bell this morning. Plain silver. Rowena stared. So the road marked it. Luna's expression darkened. Not the road. Everyone looked at her. The people who built it. Elias looked toward the spirit tree outside. Silver leaves shimmered beneath the evening sky. One of the glowing paths between its roots stretched farther than before. Toward the forest. Toward the ancient road. Toward whatever waited beyond the silver mist. Noah stood beside him. Are we eventually going to follow that? Elias answered immediately. No. The spirit tree chimed. Noah grinned. The tree disagrees. I don't care. Chime. Elias frowned. Stop. Chime. Chime. Mia laughed. That night, Elias placed the broken bell beside the mysterious wooden key. Two objects. The same symbol. Two pieces of a world his grandmother had known. A world slowly reconnecting with Willowridge. But for tonight, none of that mattered as much as one simple thing. Somewhere on a bus heading toward Greenbridge, a frightened young witch had her familiar safely asleep in her lap. Clover was home, and sometimes, that was enough mystery for one day. Chapter 11 Tea Beneath the Stars. For the first time in several months, Elias closed Moonleaf Apothecary for an entire weekend. The announcement appeared on the front door Friday evening. Closed Saturday and Sunday. Open again Monday. Beneath it, Noah had added. The witch has been forced to take a holiday. Elias crossed it out. Noah wrote it again. Elias crossed it out again. The following morning, it had returned. Luna sat beneath the sign. Persistence is his only reliable skill. I can hear you, Noah called from the garden. Good. The idea had originally been Professor Iris's. After the search for Clover, she had apparently decided everyone needed a break. No mysteries. No ancient roads. No magical markets. No lost familiars. No customers. No research. Just one night beside Lake Evermere, a quiet mountain lake several hours north of Willowridge. Camping. Elias had refused. Then Mia heard about it. After that, resistance became pointless. By 8 Saturday morning, Noah's van was parked outside Moonleaf Apothecary. The back was filled with supplies. Tents, blankets, lanterns, food, water, cooking equipment, tea, more tea, and one entire wooden crate Elias had packed himself. Noah stared at it. What's in there? Herbs. We're going camping for one night. I know. How many herbs? Enough. Luna jumped onto the crate. Too many. Elias looked betrayed. You live in an apothecary. I still possess perspective. Their group consisted of Elias, Noah, Mia, Professor Iris, Rowena, and Luna. Mrs. Agnes had declined. Not because she disliked camping. My niece have negotiated a permanent peace treaty with mattresses. But she sent enough food for 3 days. Thomas Bell contributed bread. Mayor Benjamin loaned them a larger tent. And Adrian Solis, somewhere beyond the hills, had apparently heard about the trip through magical gossip and mailed a note. If you hear singing from the lake after midnight, don't answer. Underneath. Probably joking. Noah read it twice. Probably. Elias folded the note. We're ignoring that. Lake Evermere. The drive took almost 3 hours. The final stretch followed a winding mountain road surrounded by pine forest. Mia spent most of it with her face near the window. Look, a deer. 5 minutes later, look, a waterfall. 10 minutes later, look, a particularly large rock. Noah nodded seriously. Excellent rock. Elias looked at him. Don't encourage her. Then the trees opened. Lake Evermere appeared below them. Clear blue water stretched between forested mountains. Snow still capped the distant peaks. Small wooden cabins dotted one shore, but their campsite sat farther away in a quiet meadow near the water. No city noise. No traffic. No customers. No bells above doors. Just wind, water, birds. Elias stepped out of the van. He took a slow breath. Oh, Professor Iris smiled. Worth closing the shop. Elias considered it. Ask me Monday. Setting up camp took longer than expected. Mostly because Noah insisted he knew how to assemble the large tent without instructions. 30 minutes later, the tent was upside down. Rowena stared. How? Noah looked at the collapsed structure. I've made a discovery. What? We need the instructions. Luna sat comfortably on Elias's folded blanket. Revolutionary. Mia's small tent went up first. Professor Iris and Rowena shared another. Noah had his own. Elias planned to sleep in the larger tent near the supplies. Luna inspected it. I'll sleep here. With me. No. She pointed toward Elias's sleeping bag. On that. That's mine. Correct. The afternoon passed slowly. Exactly as intended. They walked beside the lake. Collected fallen pine cones. Mia attempted to skip stones. Her first stone sank immediately. Her second also sank. Her third traveled backward somehow. Noah stared. That's impressive. Thank you. It wasn't physically supposed to do that. Elias found wild mountain herbs near the shoreline. Rowena caught him examining them. No. He looked at her. What? We're resting. I'm walking. You're cataloging. I'm looking. You're holding your herb notebook. Elias looked down. Coincidence. Rowena took the notebook. Hey, you'll get it back tomorrow. Luna nodded approvingly. Excellent. Elias looked around. Why is everyone against me? Mia answered cheerfully. Because you don't know how to take holidays. They returned to camp before sunset. Noah built the fire. Successfully. Everyone congratulated him. He looked offended. I know how to make fire. Luna stared. Do you? Noah pointed at the flames. Evidence. Dinner was simple. Vegetable stew. Thomas's bread. Grilled corn. Mrs. Agnes's hand pies. Elias prepared the tea. Naturally. Rowena watched him set 6 cups beside the fire. 6. Elias looked toward Luna. The cat sat upright. Finally. Noah frowned. She drinks tea. Sometimes. What kind? Luna looked offended. Good tea. Elias prepared a mild blend of chamomile, mountain mint, and dried apple. For Luna, a tiny saucer. No sugar. A little cream. They sat around the fire as evening settled over the lake. The mountains became dark silhouettes. The first stars appeared. Then dozens. Then hundreds. Mia looked upward. Her mouth fell open. There are so many. In Willowridge, they could see stars. But not like this. No streetlights. No houses nearby. No glowing shop windows. The sky seemed endless. For a long time, nobody talked. The fire crackled. The lake moved softly against the shore. Luna curled beside Elias. Eventually, Noah broke the silence. So, everyone looked at him. Are we supposed to share deep personal secrets now? Professor Iris laughed. Why? That's what people do around campfires. Rowena smiled. According to movies. Luna sighed. We've made a terrible mistake bringing him. Mia raised her hand. I'll go first. Elias looked at her. You don't have to. I know. She stared into her tea. I want to own a flower shop someday. Everyone became quiet. Noah smiled. Really? Mia nodded. Not a big one. Just a little shop. With plants everywhere. And maybe tea. She glanced at Elias. Like Moonleaf. Elias smiled softly. That sounds nice. But, Mia hesitated. I don't know if I'm good enough with plants. Noah opened his mouth. Elias answered first. You don't have to be good enough yet. She looked at him. You're still learning. But what if I kill them? You will. Mia's eyes widened. Everyone stared at Elias. He calmly sipped his tea. Everyone who grows plants eventually kills one. Noah raised his hand. Cactus. Especially you. Elias continued. You learn what happened. Then you try again. Mia looked toward the dark outline of the forest. So I can still have a flower shop. If you want one. She smiled. Okay. Noah went next. Not voluntarily. Mia pointed at him. Your turn. Why? You started this. Fair. He leaned back. For once. He wasn't joking. I want to build something that lasts. Professor Iris tilted her head. You work in carpentry. I know. But not furniture. He poked the fire with a stick. A house. A real house. From the foundation up. Something where. He searched for the words. People live long enough that the walls remember them. Elias looked toward him. Noah shrugged awkwardly. Sounds stupid. No, Elias said. It doesn't. Luna added. Your shelves remain questionable. Noah smiled. Thank you, Luna. That wasn't encouragement. It felt like it. Professor Iris's turn came next. She removed her glasses. Cleaned them. Put them back on. I would like. She paused. To stop feeling as though I need to know everything. Everyone stared. Rowena laughed. Impossible. I know. Iris smiled. But perhaps slightly less. She looked toward the stars. When I was younger, I thought knowledge meant certainty. The more I studied, the more answers I would have. And now, Elias asked. Now I have significantly better questions. Luna's whiskers twitched. That's usually what knowledge does. Iris sighed. Unfortunately. Rowena sat with both hands around her cup. My turn. Mia nodded. Rowena stared into the fire. I don't know where home is. Anymore. Nobody interrupted. My master's cottage in the north. That was home. Then she died. And suddenly, it became a building. Her voice remained calm. But Elias noticed her fingers tightening around the cup. I thought traveling south would help. I thought delivering Edith's letter would finish something. But instead, she looked toward Elias. I found more things. More people. More questions. She laughed quietly. And now I'm afraid that if I choose somewhere new, it means I'm leaving her behind. Elias thought about Shiro beneath the cherry tree. About Arthur waiting for Clara. About Luna remembering Elowen. You don't leave people behind just because you keep living. Rowena looked at him. Elias continued quietly. I think. You carry what they gave you. Then you take it somewhere new. Rowena's eyes softened. Your grandmother taught you that. No. Elias looked toward Luna. I'm still learning it. Luna said nothing, but her tail touched his wrist. Then everyone looked at Elias. He immediately became suspicious. No. Mia pointed. Your turn. I don't remember agreeing to this. Noah grinned. Campfire law. That's not real. Very real. Professor Iris nodded. Ancient tradition. Rowena added. Possibly magical. Luna looked at him. Speak. Elias sighed. For several seconds, he watched the fire. What do you want? Mia asked. Elias thought. That should have been easy. He wanted Moonleaf Apothecary. His garden. Tea. Quiet mornings. People he cared about. He already had those things. But beneath that, there was something else. Something he rarely said aloud. I'm afraid the shop will change. Noah frowned. Change how? Elias looked toward the lake. More people are coming. Witches. Travelers. Spirits. The old roads are waking. The spirit tree keeps reaching farther. He paused. And everyone seems excited. But you're not. Iris asked. I don't know. That was the truth. I like helping people. I like meeting them. But, he looked at his hands. I don't want Moonleaf to become something enormous. A famous magical institution. A place where people come because they expect miracles. He smiled faintly. I just want it to stay. The shop. Nobody laughed. Nobody told him he was being unreasonable. Noah leaned back. Then keep it the shop. Elias looked at him. That's it. That's it. What if the old magical world expects more? Rowena shrugged. Let it be disappointed. Professor Iris smiled. You are not obligated to become important simply because something important notices you. Elias became quiet. Mia added. And if too many people come, we can make them wait outside. Everyone laughed. Luna remained silent longer than the others. Then she said. Elowen was offered many positions. Elias looked down. What? Councils. Covens. Research circles. Important titles. She refused most of them. Why? Luna looked toward him. Because she liked her shop. Elias smiled. Of course. Hours passed. The fire burned lower. Their conversation became less serious. Noah told an embarrassing story about falling through a customer's unfinished porch. Professor Iris revealed she had once accidentally transformed her thesis notes into moths. Rowena confessed she couldn't swim. Mia promised to teach her. Rowena looked terrified. Luna refused to share anything embarrassing, which everyone agreed meant she had the most embarrassing stories. Near midnight, The lake became perfectly still. Then, a sound drifted across the water. Singing. Everyone froze. Noah slowly turned toward Elias. Adrian's note. Elias stared across the dark lake. The singing continued. Soft. Distant. Beautiful. Mia whispered. Should we answer? Everyone immediately said. No. The singing stopped. A moment later, a tiny glowing creature surfaced near the shore. It looked like a blue frog. It croaked, then disappeared. Noah stared. Was that it? Luna yawned. Lake frogs sing. That was singing. To another lake frog, perhaps. Noah looked betrayed. Adrian knew. Probably. Elias sighed. I'm never trusting his notes again. Eventually, everyone went to sleep. Almost everyone. Elias remained beside the dying fire. The lake reflected the stars. He poured himself one final cup of tea. A few minutes later, Luna emerged from the tent. She jumped onto the log beside him. Can't sleep. Not yet. Thinking. Unfortunately. Luna settled beside him. For a while, they watched the sky. Then Elias asked, Did Grandma ever bring you here? Once. When? Before you were born. Did she like it? Yes. What did she say? Luna thought. She complained about mosquitoes. Elias laughed. That sounds disappointingly normal. Elowen was disappointingly normal. Luna looked toward the stars. That was one of her better qualities. Elias poured a little tea into Luna's saucer. She drank. Then he leaned back. The stars stretched endlessly overhead. The world beyond Willowridge suddenly seemed very large. Ancient roads. Hidden markets. Foreign witches. Forgotten shrines. Places his grandmother once traveled. Places Elias might someday see. But for the first time, that thought didn't frighten him quite as much. Because traveling somewhere new didn't mean abandoning home. Sometimes, you left so you could understand why you wanted to return. Morning arrived with mist over the lake. Mia woke first. Then everyone else woke because Mia discovered that sleepy clover grew wild near the campsite. Elias. He emerged from the tent without his glasses. His hair pointed in several directions. What? Look. He squinted. Green blur. Mia burst out laughing. Breakfast was bread, eggs, fruit, and leftover hand pies. Noah burned one egg. Luna called it an act of violence. Professor Iris drank 3 cups of coffee. Rowena stood ankle-deep in the lake as part of Mia's first swimming lesson. She immediately decided that was enough progress for one day. Before leaving, they took a photograph. Noah balanced his phone against a rock. Everyone gathered beside the lake. Mia in front, Professor Iris and Rowena behind her. Noah running into frame at the last second. Elias holding Luna. The timer flashed. Click. In the photograph, nobody looked particularly elegant. Noah was half falling. Mia was laughing. Iris had her eyes closed. Rowena looked startled. Luna looked furious. Elias's glasses were slightly crooked. It was perfect. That evening, they returned to Willowridge. Moonleaf Apothecary stood exactly where they'd left it. The spirit tree shimmered gently. The garden waited. The front door remained locked. Elias stood outside for a moment. Then smiled. Home. Luna jumped from his arms. Open the door. Why? My dinner is inside. Sentimental. I have standards. Elias unlocked Moonleaf Apothecary. The familiar scent of herbs and old wood greeted him. Nothing had changed. And somehow, after only one night away, everything felt a little warmer. On Monday morning, the shop would open again. Customers would come. Potions would need brewing. The old roads would continue waking. Mysteries would undoubtedly arrive without appointments. But tonight, there was no urgency. No problem to solve. No person waiting to be healed. Just friends returning from a quiet weekend. A photograph to place on the wall. And the memory of 6 cups of tea beneath a sky filled with stars. Chapter 12 The Old Witch's Promise. The blue teacup had been sitting in Moonleaf Apothecary for longer than Elias had been alive. He had seen it thousands of times. As a child, he thought it was simply one of his grandmother's favorite cups. It sat on the highest shelf in the kitchen. Pale blue porcelain, tiny white flowers painted around the rim, a hairline crack near the handle, and one small silver crescent painted underneath. Elowen never used it, never threw it away, never explained why she kept it. Now, Elias finally knew. Sunday evening, after returning from Lake Evermere, Elias opened his grandmother's notebook again. People I still owe a cup of tea. Near the bottom, Edith Ashcroft, give her the blue teacup. Elias stared at the words. Then toward the kitchen shelf. Luna sat beside him, her tail curled around her paws. You've been staring at that page for 10 minutes. I know. You'll eventually have to do something. I know. Another minute passed. Luna sighed. Remarkably efficient. Elias stood. He climbed onto a stool and carefully took down the blue teacup. Dust covered the saucer. He wiped it gently. The cup looked ordinary. Almost disappointingly ordinary. But when his thumb passed over the silver crescent underneath, a tiny pulse of magic moved through it. Elias froze. Luna, I felt it. You knew it was enchanted. No, you lived here for decades. I don't lick the crockery. Fair. The magic wasn't dangerous. It was barely even active. More like something sleeping, waiting. Elias carried the cup to the counter. Then went upstairs. Inside the box of Elowen's unsent letters rested one envelope they had deliberately left untouched. For Edith. No address. No surname. Only those 2 words. Elias picked it up. The paper felt heavier than it should. Rowena had returned to her room at the inn after the camping trip. Elias sent her a message. Can you come tomorrow morning? The reply came less than a minute later. The teacup. Elias stared. Then typed. Yes. The promise. Rowena arrived before Moonleaf opened. Professor Iris came too. Noah arrived carrying breakfast because, in his words, if this is emotional, people should eat first. Mia was at school. Mrs. Agnes had not been invited. She arrived anyway. Nobody asked anymore. They gathered around the kitchen table. The blue teacup sat in the center. Beside it, Elowen's letter. Rowena stared at both. My master talked about this cup. Elias looked at her. She did. Once. What did she say? Rowena smiled faintly. That Elowen Rowan was a thief. Luna's ears flattened. Edith gave it to her. Rowena looked at the cat. According to Edith, Elowen borrowed it. For 53 years. She was very committed to borrowing. Mrs. Agnes snorted into her tea. Elias touched the envelope. I haven't opened this. Rowena nodded. Neither should I. Professor Iris looked between them. Then how do we know what to do? Luna stared at the blue cup. We asked someone who was there. Everyone looked at her. Noah blinked. You. Luna's ears lowered slightly. I wasn't. Silence. Then Luna said. But the cup was. They moved outside. The spirit tree stood beneath the pale morning sky. Silver leaves shimmered gently. Elias placed the blue teacup between its roots. Nothing happened. Noah waited. Do we say something? I don't know. Maybe knock. It's a tree. That hasn't stopped anything else lately. Rowena knelt. She removed something from her coat. A small tin. Inside were dried purple flowers. Elias recognized them immediately. Winter violets. Rowena nodded. Edith grew them. She placed one beside the cup. The spirit tree rustled. The silver crescent beneath the porcelain began glowing. Then, chime. The garden disappeared. Elias opened his eyes. Moonleaf Apothecary was gone. Or rather, it was still there, but different. The building was smaller. The door was yellow. The garden younger. The spirit tree, behind them was enormous. And completely green. Not silver. Not dormant. Alive with thousands of leaves. Noah whispered. Memory. Luna nodded. Yes. 2 women sat beneath the tree. One had dark auburn hair tied messily behind her head. Her sleeves were rolled up. Dirt stained her hands. Elias recognized her immediately. Elowen. Young. Perhaps 25. Across from her sat another young witch. Black hair. Sharp gray eyes. A long dark coat despite the summer weather. Edith Ashcroft. Between them sat a teapot. And 2 cups. One white. One blue. Young Elowen pushed the blue cup toward Edith. You always bring your own. Because your cups are ugly. They're practical. They're chipped. Character. Poor maintenance. Elias covered his mouth. Noah whispered. I like her. Rowena smiled. That's Edith. The memory continued. Edith poured tea. For several minutes, the 2 women simply sat. No ancient ritual. No dramatic spell. No secret council. Just tea. Then Edith spoke. The roads are closing. Elowen stopped smiling. I know. 3 vanished this month. 4. Edith looked toward her. 4. The northern path disappeared yesterday. The mood changed. Professor Iris stepped closer. The old roads. Luna stared at the memory. So this was when it began. Edith placed the teapot down. The magical communities are pulling inward. People are frightened. They think hiding will protect them. Elowen looked toward Willowridge. And ordinary people, what about them? They'll keep living, getting sick, having children, losing people, needing help. Edith sighed. Elowen, I'm staying. I know. Edith looked toward the spirit tree. If the road's close completely, you may lose contact with everyone. Then I'll write letters. Elias's expression changed. The hidden room. Hundreds of letters. Edith continued. You won't have access to rare ingredients. I'll grow what I can. Magical councils may stop recognizing rural practitioners. I don't care. You should. I don't. Edith stared at her, then laughed. You're impossible. So I've been told. But Edith's smile disappeared. What if the tree sleeps? Elowen finally became silent. What if Willowridge loses its connection entirely? What if someday, no witch remembers this place? The young Elowen looked toward Moonleaf Apothecary. Her expression softened. Then someone will. Who? I don't know. Maybe my child. Maybe their child. Maybe some witch who gets lost. She smiled. Someone always needs tea. Edith reached into her coat. She removed something. A small seed. Silver and emerald. Elias stopped breathing. The heart seed. The same seed now stored inside Moonleaf Apothecary. Professor Iris whispered. No. Edith placed it on the table. If the spirit tree ever wakes again, plant this. Elowen stared. Where did you get it? That is a story for another day. Edith. Another day. Elowen narrowed her eyes. You are extremely irritating. I learned from you. Edith pushed the seed toward her. When the roads return, they'll notice. Who? Edith didn't answer. Instead, she picked up her blue teacup. She stared into it, then slowly placed it before Elowen. Keep this. Elowen frowned. You just insulted my cups. Exactly. So why? Because I want it back. Elowen stared. Edith smiled. When the roads return, when the tree wakes, when someone finally plants that seed, bring me my cup. Elowen's expression softened. That's your great magical contingency plan. Yes. A teacup. A very nice teacup. It's blue. Excellent observation. Then Edith became serious. If you're still here, you bring it. And if I'm not, someone after you. And if you're not there. Edith looked toward the distant hills. Someone after me. A pause. Elowen held out her hand. Promise. Edith took it. Promise. The memory faded. The garden returned. Everyone stood beneath the silver spirit tree. Nobody spoke. The blue teacup rested between the roots. Beside it, the winter violet. Elias looked toward Rowena. She was crying silently. My master remembered. All those years. She remembered. Luna stared at the cup. So did Elowen. Elias looked toward the heart seed visible through the apothecary window. When the roads return, Professor Iris nodded. The lantern market, the forest road, the symbols, the tree. It's all connected. Noah frowned. But Edith is gone. Rowena wiped her eyes. Yes. So, who gets the cup? Rowena looked at him, then at Elias. Someone after her. Elias picked up the envelope. For Edith, then handed it to Rowena. She froze. Elias. Grandma wrote it for Edith. Edith isn't here. No. He looked toward her. But you are. Rowena's hands trembled as she accepted it. She opened the envelope. Slowly. Inside were 3 pages. Rowena read silently. Halfway through, she laughed, then cried harder. No one asked what it said. Finally, she reached the bottom. Her expression changed. There's something for you. Elias blinked. For me, not by name. She turned the page. At the bottom, Elowen had written, if Edith is gone when this arrives, and one of hers is reading this instead, tell whoever inherited Moonleaf that the cup is not meant to stay in Willowridge. Take it north. Edith will have left the rest. Professor Iris stared. North. Rowena slowly looked up. My master's cottage. Elias remembered. Rowena's home. The place she'd been afraid to return to permanently. Where is it? Beyond Greyhaven. Near the old northern witch road. Luna's eyes narrowed. Of course. Noah slowly smiled. Elias saw it. No. I didn't say anything. You were about to say road trip. I was thinking it. No. Rowena laughed through her tears. Elias. He looked at her. I think you have to come. The introverted witch looked toward his apothecary. His garden. His counter. His shelves. His extremely comfortable chair beside the fireplace. Then toward the blue teacup. He sighed. How far? Rowena smiled. About 6 hours. Elias looked horrified. Noah immediately said, road trip. Noah. 6 hours. No. I'll drive. Absolutely not. Why? You assembled a tent upside down. That's unrelated. Mrs. Agnes calmly drank her tea. You should go. Elias looked at her. Who'll watch Moonleaf? I will. Everyone stared. Mrs. Agnes raised an eyebrow. What? Luna looked concerned. You cannot brew potions. No. But I can tell people to come back next week. Professor Iris nodded. Effective. Elias looked toward Luna. You're coming. Obviously. Noah pointed to himself. Me. Elias sighed. Someone has to carry things. Yes. Professor Iris raised her hand. I have research obligations. Everyone stared. She adjusted her glasses. Fine. I want to see the northern road. Rowena looked at the blue teacup. Her expression was complicated. Sadness. Nervousness. But also something Elias hadn't seen before. Anticipation. She picked it up carefully. No. Elias stopped her. I should carry it. Why? My grandmother borrowed it. Rowena smiled. Fair. That evening, Elias wrapped the blue teacup in several layers of cloth. Then another layer. Then placed it inside a padded wooden box. Noah watched. It's a cup. It's 53 years overdue. Fair. Before closing the box, Elias turned the cup over. The silver crescent still glowed. But now, another symbol had appeared beside it. A flowering branch. Together, they formed the same symbol Elias had seen at the shrine. The lantern market. Clovers. Bell. The old road. Elias touched it. The wooden key in his pocket became warm. Far north of Willowridge, beyond Greyhaven, a cottage stood alone among dark pine trees. It had been empty for months. Dust covered the windows. Winter violets grew wild around the porch. Inside, something clicked. An old lock opened by itself. Then another. Then another. And beneath the cottage, a doorway that had remained sealed for more than half a century slowly began to glow. Silver. Then green. Waiting. Back in Willowridge, Elias closed the wooden box. Tuesday morning, Rowena said. Elias nodded. Noah grinned. 6-hour road trip. Elias looked at him. If you make a playlist. Already made one. I'm staying home. No, you're not. For once. Even Luna seemed amused. The old witch's promise had waited more than 50 years. One witch had died before she could fulfill it. The other had died before she could receive it. But promises, Elias was discovering, didn't always belong only to the people who made them. Sometimes they passed quietly from hand to hand. From teacher to student. From grandmother to grandson. Until someone finally reached the place where the promise was meant to end. And for the first time in years, Elias Rowan was preparing to leave Willowridge. Not for a market. Not for a single afternoon. But to follow one of the forgotten roads his grandmother had once known. North. Toward Edith Ashcroft's cottage. Toward the next piece of the mystery. And toward a world beyond the hills that was slowly, patiently, opening again. Chapter 13 The Road North. At 6:30 on Tuesday morning, Elias Rowan stood outside Moonleaf Apothecary with one suitcase. Noah stood beside him with 4. Elias stared. No. Noah looked down. What? We're going away for a few days. I know. Why do you have 4 bags? Supplies. What supplies? Noah pointed one by one. Clothes. Food. Emergency equipment. And entertainment. Elias adjusted his glasses. Leave the entertainment. Noah looked horrified. It's a 6-hour drive. Exactly. That's why we need entertainment. That's why I brought a book. Noah stared at him. Sometimes I forget how different we are. Rowena arrived carrying one practical traveling bag. Professor Iris arrived with 2. One contained clothes. The other, books. Noah pointed accusingly. Why does she get 2? Research materials, Iris said. Mine are emotional support materials. Luna emerged from Moonleaf Apothecary. She jumped onto Elias's suitcase. I vote we leave both men. Elias looked down. I'm carrying you. I amend my vote. The blue teacup rested inside a padded wooden box in Elias's satchel. He had checked it 5 times. Noah had watched him check it 5 times. If you check again, the cup is going to become nervous. It's old. It's porcelain. Exactly. The front door opened. Mrs. Agnes stepped outside wearing an apron. Everyone stared. Elias slowly looked toward his apothecary. Then back at her. Why are you inside? You gave me the spare key. For emergencies. This is an emergency. What happened? You haven't eaten breakfast. She held out a basket. Thomas Bell's bread, boiled eggs, fruit, sandwiches, 2 jars of jam, and enough pastries to survive a minor apocalypse. Noah immediately accepted it. Thank you. Elias sighed. Mrs. Agnes looked at Elias. Stop worrying. I'm not. Your eyebrows disagree. She patted his shoulder. I'll watch the place. If someone needs medicine, I'll call Drive. Bennett. If something magical happens, I'll call you. If. Mrs. Agnes pointed toward Noah's van. Go. Elias looked toward Luna. She's frightening. Correct. Mia arrived with her mother just before they left. She was still wearing her school uniform. You better take pictures. We will. And bring something back. Noah grinned. Souvenirs. Elias corrected him. Maybe. Mia pointed toward him. That's legally a yes. It isn't. Luna nodded. It is now. At 7:03, they left Willowridge. Elias watched Moonleaf Apothecary disappear through the rear window. The spirit tree remained visible longer than the building. Silver branches shimmered above the hill. Then even those vanished. Elias turned forward. Noah noticed. You okay? Yes. Sure. Drive. That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting. Hour 1. Noah's playlist began 12 minutes into the journey. Elias tolerated it for exactly 3 songs. Then, what is this? Noah looked offended. Classic road trip music. There is someone screaming. That's the chorus. Why? Emotion. Luna, sitting in Elias's lap, flattened her ears. Turn it off. Noah glanced at her through the mirror. You liked the last song. I was asleep. Exactly. Rowena sat beside Professor Iris in the back. She watched the countryside pass. You really haven't traveled much, Elias. Not recently. When was the last long trip? He thought. I was 17. Where? Greenbridge. Noah laughed. That's 90 minutes away. It felt long. They passed farms, small towns, service stations, modern suburbs. For the first 2 hours, nothing magical happened. Elias considered this a success. Hour 3. They stopped at a roadside cafe. Completely ordinary. No magical menu. No spirits. No enchanted utensils. Just coffee, sandwiches, and a vending machine that refused Noah's coins. He kicked it. Elias stared. Don't. It stole my money. It's a machine. It's a thief. Luna looked toward the vending machine. I respect it. Elias bought tea. He sat outside beneath a faded umbrella. Rowena joined him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said, I'm nervous. Elias looked at her. About the cottage. Yes. She wrapped both hands around her coffee. I haven't stayed there since Edith died. You went back for your belongings. Only briefly. I couldn't. She paused. Sleep there. Elias understood. Some places were hardest when they looked exactly the same. Do we have to stay there? Rowena looked at him. I think so. Why? She smiled faintly. Because I'm tired of being afraid of my own home. Elias nodded. Okay. Rowena looked amused. That's all. What should I say? I don't know. He took another sip. If you want to leave, we'll leave. If you want to stay, we'll stay. Rowena's shoulders relaxed. Thank you. From inside the cafe. Elias. He closed his eyes. Noah emerged holding a packet of chips. I defeated the machine. Did you get your money back? No. Then you lost. Noah stared at the chips. I dislike your perspective. Hour 4. The landscape changed. Hills became mountains. Fields gave way to pine forest. The road narrowed. Rowena became more alert. We're approaching Greyhaven. Professor Iris immediately pulled out a notebook. Elias noticed. Research. Observation. That's research. Yes. Greyhaven was larger than Willowridge. A mountain town built along a wide river. Modern cafes stood beside century-old stone buildings. Cars moved through narrow streets. Tourists photographed the mountains. At first glance, nothing seemed particularly magical. Then Elias noticed the streetlights. Tiny protective sigils were carved beneath each lamp. The bridge railing contained iron wards. Herbs grew in window boxes specifically arranged to repel troublesome spirits. Noah noticed Elias looking. Magic. Everywhere. Rowena nodded. Greyhaven has always lived closer to the old communities. Do ordinary people know? Some. Most just think they're local traditions. They stopped for fuel. An elderly cashier looked at Rowena, then at Elias, then at Luna. Her eyes widened slightly. Heading north. Rowena nodded. The cashier's expression became serious. Road's been strange lately. Noah leaned closer. Strange how? People taking shortcuts. Arriving before they left. Noah smiled. That sounds efficient. No, everyone said. The cashier pointed toward the mountain road. If you see lanterns, don't follow them. Professor Iris immediately wrote that down. Elias stared at her. What? Useful information. Hour 5. They left Greyhaven. The modern highway ended. The road became narrower, older. Pine forest surrounded them. Mobile signal disappeared. Noah held up his phone. Nothing. Elias looked at his. Same. Professor Iris looked delighted. We're entering a magical interference zone. Noah looked toward her. Why are you happy? This is academically fascinating. It's inconvenient. Both can be true. Then Elias felt it. The wooden key inside his pocket became warm. He pulled it out. The carved vines glowed faintly. Rowena noticed. We're close. 10 minutes later, they reached a fork. One road continued north. The other was blocked by an old metal gate. A sign read, "Road closed. No access." Noah slowed. Which way? Rowena pointed toward the closed road. That one. Of course. She stepped out. The others followed. Beyond the gate, the road was covered in leaves. No tire tracks. No footprints. It looked abandoned. Professor Iris examined the lock. Rust. Probably hasn't opened in years. Rowena shook her head. It doesn't open for cars. Noah looked at his van. Then why did I drive? Because the ordinary road ends here. Elias's wooden key grew hotter. He approached the gate. There was no keyhole. But when he touched the metal, click, the gate unlocked. Noah stared. Useful key. Sometimes. Beyond the gate, the old road waited. Not stone like the one where they found Clover. This path was packed earth. Narrow. Twisting through pine trees. Silver markings glowed faintly beneath fallen needles. Rowena took a slow breath. The Northern Witch Road. Professor Iris looked like someone had handed her an entire library. Noah opened the back of the van. So, walking. Rowena nodded. About an hour. Noah stared at his 4 bags. Everyone stared at Noah. Fine. He removed one backpack. Luna looked satisfied. Growth. They left the van near the gate. Elias carried the blue teacup. Rowena led. Professor Iris followed with her notebook. Noah carried food. Luna walked beside Elias. For the first 15 minutes, nothing happened. Then they passed a stone lantern. It lit itself. Phoom. Another lit ahead. Then another. One by one, the old road awakened. Tiny spirits watched from the trees. A creature resembling a squirrel with antlers. A bird made of pine needles. Something with enormous eyes hiding beneath a mushroom. Noah whispered, "Are they friendly?" Luna answered, "They haven't attacked you. That's not the same thing. It's the best guarantee you'll receive." They walked farther. The forest became strangely quiet. Then, a voice came from behind them. Elias. He stopped. It sounded like Mia. He turned. Luna bit his trouser leg. "Don't." Elias froze. The voice came again. Elias. Definitely Mia. Noah turned too. Rowena immediately grabbed his sleeve. Echo spirit. Professor Iris whispered. They imitate familiar voices. The voice changed. Elias. His grandmother. Elias's chest tightened. Luna pressed against his leg. Keep walking. He did. The voice followed. Elias. Come back. You've forgotten something. He didn't turn. After several minutes, it faded. Noah released a breath. I hated that. So did I. Rowena looked toward Elias. You okay? He nodded. This time, it was mostly true. The marker. After 40 minutes, they reached a stone arch. The crescent moon and flowering branch were carved at its center. Elias stopped. The symbol. Rowena touched the carving. This marked the Ashcroft territory. Professor Iris frowned. Territory. Not ownership. Responsibility. Rowena looked toward the forest. Edith's family maintained this section of the road for generations. Protected travelers. Kept spirits from becoming hostile. Maintained shrines. Elias remembered Edith's argument with Elowen. Her fear that old magical places would disappear. She stayed. Rowena nodded. Her whole life. They stepped beneath the arch. The air changed. Warmer. Softer. The blue teacup's box began glowing. Rowena stared. We're close. Then they saw the cottage. It stood in a clearing surrounded by pine trees. 2 stories. Dark stone walls. A steep slate roof. Wooden porch. Green shutters. Winter violets grew everywhere. Purple flowers covered the garden despite the season. A small greenhouse stood behind the house. Smoke rose from the chimney. Everyone stopped. Rowena's face lost color. There shouldn't be smoke. Noah quietly put down his backpack. Someone's here. No, I locked everything. Professor Iris whispered. Perhaps the cottage awakened. Luna's fur rose. Or someone arrived first. Elias felt the wooden key. Hot. The blue teacup hummed inside its box. The front door stood slightly open. Rowena slowly approached. Stay behind me. Noah frowned. It's your house. Exactly. They reached the porch. A cup sat on the small outdoor table. Fresh tea. Steam still rising. Beside it, a second cup. Empty. Waiting. Rowena stared. Edith. Nothing answered. Then, click. The front door opened wider. Warm golden light spilled across the porch. From somewhere inside, a woman's voice spoke. Calm. Older. Familiar to Rowena. You're late. Rowena stopped breathing. Elias looked toward her. She whispered. Master. They entered. The cottage smelled of dried herbs. Old books. Wood smoke. Winter violets. Everything looked exactly as Rowena remembered. Her master's coat still hung beside the door. Her boots remained beneath the bench. A half-finished knitting project sat beside the fireplace. But no one was there. Edith. Rowena called. Silence. Then the voice came again. Kitchen. They followed. On the kitchen table sat an old magical gramophone. Its needle moved by itself. A glowing crystal rested where a record should have been. Edith's voice emerged from it. If you're hearing this, then either Elowen finally returned my teacup. A pause. Or one of you took an unreasonable amount of time. Rowena covered her mouth. Noah whispered. I like her. Luna muttered. Everyone does eventually. The recording continued. Place the cup on the table. Elias slowly opened the wooden box. He unwrapped the layers. The blue porcelain shimmered. He placed it down. Click. Something unlocked beneath the floor. The entire cottage trembled. Professor Iris looked down. That sounded substantial. A section of the kitchen floor moved aside. Stone stairs descended into darkness. Silver-green light glowed below. The same light Elias had seen in the spirit tree. The same color as the heart seed. Rowena stared. I lived here for 14 years. I never knew this existed. Edith's recorded voice continued. Good. Everyone looked at the gramophone. That means the seal worked. Then the recording addressed someone specifically. Rowena. She froze. If you're the one standing there. Her eyes filled with tears. Welcome home. Rowena bowed her head. And if a Rowan is with you. Elias stared. Tell them Elowen still owes me 53 years of tea. Luna sighed. She kept count. Then Edith's voice became serious. Do not descend. Alone. Do not remove anything. And whatever you see. The silver-green light beneath the cottage brightened. Remember that the roads were closed for a reason. The recording ended. Click. Silence. Noah stared down the stairs. So, are we going down? Elias immediately said. No. Professor Iris looked horrified. What? We've been traveling all day. But, we're tired. But there's an unknown magical chamber beneath the cottage. Exactly. Which is why. Tomorrow. Professor Iris stared at him as though he had personally insulted scholarship. Luna nodded. Correct decision. Rowena looked toward Elias. Then laughed. My master leaves a secret magical chamber beneath my childhood home. And we're going to eat dinner. Yes. Noah picked up the food bag. Finally, something I understand. That evening, they reopened the cottage. Not the hidden chamber. The home. Rowena lit lamps. Elias aired the bedrooms. Noah carried firewood. Professor Iris reluctantly stopped staring at the stairs. Luna claimed Edith's old armchair. Dinner was simple. Soup, bread, tea. Rowena sat at the kitchen table. For the first time since arriving. She looked peaceful. This feels strange. Elias placed a cup before her. Bad, she thought. No, just different. She looked around. Maybe that's okay. Outside, the northern witch road glowed faintly through the trees. Lantern after lantern remained lit. For the first time in decades. Travelers had reached the Ashcroft cottage. A promise had been delivered. A door had opened. And beneath their feet, something old waited patiently. But Elias didn't go down. Not yet. Because ancient magical secrets could wait until morning. Dinner couldn't. And if Elwyn Rowan had taught him anything, it was that sometimes the most important thing a witch could do at the end of a long journey was sit down, eat something warm, and remember why they had traveled there in the first place. Chapter 14 What the Roads Remember. Elias woke to the smell of coffee. For several seconds, he forgot where he was. The ceiling was unfamiliar. Dark wooden beams crossed overhead. Heavy curtains covered a narrow window. A shelf beside the bed held dried winter violets and 3 books with titles he couldn't read without his glasses. Then, knock, knock. You're awake, Noah. Elias reached blindly toward the bedside table. His fingers found his glasses. The room came into focus. Edith Ashcroft's cottage. The Northern Witch Road. The hidden staircase beneath the kitchen. Elias stared at the ceiling. Right. Noah opened the door without waiting. Breakfast. I heard you knock. Yes. You didn't wait. I knew you were awake. You asked if I was awake. Confirmation. Elias stared. Noah smiled. Coffee. Tea. Of course. Downstairs, Rowena was already cooking eggs. Professor Iris sat at the kitchen table surrounded by notes. Luna occupied Edith's old armchair. The hidden staircase remained open in the kitchen floor. Silver-green light glowed faintly from below. Elias deliberately looked away from it. First, breakfast. Rowena placed a plate in front of him. You slept. Yes. Really. Eventually. She smiled. Me too. Elias noticed the difference immediately. Yesterday, entering the cottage had made Rowena tense. This morning, her hair was loosely tied. Her sleeves rolled up. She moved through the kitchen without hesitation. Like someone slowly remembering where everything belonged. You look comfortable, Elias said. Rowena stopped. Then looked around. I suppose I am. Luna opened one eye. Your master would complain that you're using the wrong pan. Rowena laughed. She always did. Professor Iris closed her notebook. Now. Elias looked at her. Now what? The chamber. After. Tea. You've had tea. I haven't finished. Iris stared at his half-full cup. Noah whispered. She's been waiting since 6. I woke at 5:30, Iris corrected. That's worse. 20 minutes later, they stood around the hidden staircase. Elias carried a lantern. Noah carried another. Professor Iris had her notebook. Rowena held Edith's old staff. Luna stood at the top step. Elias looked at her. You're coming. Obviously. You don't like stairs. I dislike mysteries more. Noah frowned. Since when? Luna ignored him. The gramophone on the kitchen table suddenly clicked. Everyone froze. Edith's recorded voice emerged. If you've slept, eaten, and behaved sensibly. Professor Iris slowly looked toward Elias. Elias looked smug. You may descend. Noah burst out laughing. Luna's whiskers twitched. Edith anticipated you. Elias adjusted his glasses. I like her more now. Rowena stepped onto the first stair. The silver-green light brightened. Ready. Elias looked down. No. Then followed. Beneath the cottage, the staircase descended much farther than expected. 10 steps. 20. 30. The cottage should have ended above them long ago. But the stairs continued. Professor Iris whispered. Spatial extension. Noah looked downward. Meaning, the chamber is larger inside than physically possible. Magic. Yes. You could have said magic. The stone walls were covered in carvings. Crescent moons. Flowering branches. Trees. Roads. Hundreds of tiny lines connecting symbols. Elias recognized some. The forest shrine near Willowridge. The lantern market. The northern road. The spirit tree. Others. He had never seen. Mountains. Islands. Cities. Ruins. A lighthouse. A tower surrounded by stars. A bridge crossing what looked like clouds. Rowena touched one carving. I never knew any of this was here. Luna looked at her. Edith intended you not to. Rowena smiled faintly. She succeeded. At the bottom, they reached a door. No handle. No lock. Only 2 carved symbols. A crescent moon. A flowering branch. Professor Iris looked toward the wooden key in Elias's hand. Try it. There's no keyhole. That hasn't mattered before. Fair. Elias pressed the key against the door. Nothing happened. Then Rowena placed Edith's staff beside it. Click. The 2 symbols glowed. The door opened. Beyond it was a library. No. Elias corrected himself. A map room. An enormous circular chamber stretched beneath the cottage. Shelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling. Hundreds of journals, scrolls, maps, boxes, glass bottles containing glowing dust, old traveling bags, broken signposts, lanterns, and at the center, a massive stone table. Floating above it was a map made entirely of light. Noah whispered, "Okay." Professor Iris forgot to breathe. The map showed the entire country. Perhaps more. Hundreds of glowing lines stretched across it. Roads, some bright, some dim, most completely dark. Small symbols marked towns and magical places. At the center of one region, a silver tree glowed. Willowridge. Another light marked the lantern market. Another, the road where they found Clover. And beneath their feet, a crescent moon glowed. The Ashcroft cottage. Professor Iris approached slowly. "This is a road archive," Rowena whispered. Luna stared upward. Not merely an archive, a watch station. A crystal beside the table lit up. Edith's voice filled the chamber. "Good. You found it." Noah looked around. "She really planned everything," Luna muttered. She enjoyed being dramatic. The recording continued. The old roads were never simply paths. The map changed. Images appeared above it. Witches walking through forests. Spirits crossing rivers. Healers carrying medicine. Merchants pulling carts. Children traveling with families. They connected communities. They allowed magical beings to move safely through a world increasingly built for ordinary humans. A city appeared. Cars. Railways. Highways. Buildings. Old magical paths weaving between them. But roads remember those who travel them. The images changed again. A witch carrying medicine through a snowstorm. A familiar searching for its witch. A family fleeing a fire. A merchant delivering food. A child walking home. Every journey leaves something behind. Elias watched the glowing lines. Memories. Luna nodded. Exactly. Edith's recording became quieter. And memories can become dangerous. The map darkened. Several roads turned red. Images appeared. A traveler attacked. A witch betrayed. A village abandoned. People running. Spirits frightened. A road covered in shadow. Fear leaves memories too. So does grief. So does violence. Rowena tightened her grip on Edith's staff. Professor Iris stopped writing. The recording continued. Decades ago, magical communities began withdrawing from ordinary society. Some feared persecution. Others feared modern development. Some simply believed magic would survive better if hidden. Old roads were deliberately sealed. Not all at once. One by one. Ashcroft witches were among the people responsible for maintaining them. Edith herself had closed several. Why? Elias whispered. The recording answered almost as though she'd heard him. Because some roads became unsafe. A section of the glowing map turned black. And because there were things traveling them that should not have reached ordinary towns. Noah became serious. What things? The recording didn't say. Instead, we believed the roads would remain closed for a generation. Perhaps two. The map showed years passing. 10, 20, 30. More roads faded. We were wrong. The communities separated. Knowledge disappeared. Shrines were forgotten. Guardians died. Younger witches chose ordinary lives. Some roads lost their destinations entirely. And eventually, even the people who knew how to reopen them became rare. Elias thought of Elowen, staying in Willowridge, writing letters she could no longer deliver. A shop slowly becoming isolated from a world it once belonged to. Then the silver tree on the map brightened. Willowridge. Edith's voice softened. Elowen refused to close her road. Luna's ears lifted. Rowena smiled. Of course she did. Images appeared. A younger Elowen standing beneath the spirit tree. Several witches arguing with her. Elowen's arms crossed. Her expression furious. Noah whispered. She looks terrifying. Luna nodded. She was. Edith continued. She said a road should not exist only for witches. She said if one frightened traveler needed somewhere safe to stop, Moonleaf would remain. Elias looked toward the silver tree. The others closed their roads. Willowridge didn't. But without the surrounding network, the spirit tree slowly weakened. Its road became isolated. Eventually, the tree slept. Moonleaf remained, waiting. Professor Iris whispered. So when the spirit tree awakened, the network sensed it. Rowena finished. The lantern market, the hidden road, the spirits, the returning symbols, the forgotten paths, all responding to Willowridge. Edith's recording continued. If you're hearing this, the Rowan Road has awakened. And if that has happened, several dark lines on the map flickered. Then slowly, one turned silver, another green, another gold. The others will begin remembering how to return. Noah smiled. That's good. Luna didn't. No. Everyone looked at her. Elias understood. Not all of them. Edith's voice became stern. Do not open every road. The chamber darkened. Do not assume old means good. Do not mistake forgotten for harmless. A single road on the northern edge of the map pulsed red. Some doors were closed because they needed to stay closed. Professor Iris stared at the red road. Where does that go? Rowena examined the map. Her face changed. No. What? She pointed. That road shouldn't exist. The line began far north. Beyond Greyhaven. Beyond the Ashcroft territory. It crossed the mountains. Then simply stopped. No destination symbol. No town. No shrine. Nothing. Only darkness. Beside it, one word appeared. Hollow. Luna's fur rose. Turn off the map. Professor Iris looked at her. Why? Now. Rowena touched Edith's staff to the table. Nothing happened. The red road brightened. Elias felt cold. Not ordinary cold. The same wrong feeling he'd experienced around exhausted magic. But much stronger. Then, a sound came from somewhere in the chamber. Knock. Everyone froze. Noah looked toward the door. Was that upstairs? Knock. No. It came from beneath them. Knock. The glowing red road pulsed with each sound. Elias gripped the wooden key. Luna, do not answer. Nobody had planned to. Then a voice whispered. Not from the room. From the map. Rowan. Elias went still. The voice sounded ancient. Dry. Distant. Road. The spirit tree symbol flashed silver. The red road surged toward it. Professor Iris stepped back. It's trying to connect. Elias didn't know how to operate the map. Didn't know the spell. Didn't know what Edith expected. So he did the simplest thing. He placed his hand over Willowridge's symbol. No. Everyone stared. The red light stopped. Elias swallowed. This road doesn't lead to Moonleaf. The chamber trembled. Knock. He thought of his shop. Mia doing homework at the tea table. Mrs. Agnes bringing pies. Thomas's bread. Arthur and Clara. Shiro. Sophie and Clover. Children carrying sleepy Clover home. His grandmother's yellow door. Moonleaf wasn't a gateway. It wasn't a magical headquarters. It wasn't an invitation for anything ancient that wanted access. It was a shop. A safe place. His home. Elias pressed harder. I said no. The wooden key became burning hot. Silver roots spread from the Willowridge symbol. They wrapped around the approaching red road. Then, snap. The connection broke. The red road vanished. Darkness returned to that section of the map. The knocking stopped. Nobody moved. Noah finally whispered. Remind me never to argue with you. Luna looked at him. You argue with him daily. About shelves. Different category. Edith's recording resumed. Everyone jumped. Excellent. Elias stared at the crystal. Did she know that would happen? Rowena's eyes narrowed. Master. The recording continued. If you just refuse the hollow road, then whoever inherited Moonleaf has enough sense to continue listening. Elias slowly exhaled. Professor Iris looked offended. That was a test. Luna sighed. Definitely Edith. A road requires two things. A destination. And permission. The map changed. The safe roads glowed gently. Never forget the second. Elias stared at Willowridge. Permission. The roads weren't simply waking on their own. They were asking. The spirits. The signs. The offerings. The lanterns. Even the old road where they found Clover. Perhaps none had been trying to force him. They had been waiting for Moonleaf's answer. The recording continued. Elowen believed the roads could return differently. Not as a hidden kingdom. Not as a network controlled by councils. But as places of hospitality. Images appeared. Small apothecaries. Inns. Gardens. Libraries. Ordinary homes. Places where magical and non-magical people could safely meet. Elias smiled faintly. That sounds like Grandma. Luna's expression softened. Yes. If you choose to reopen the Rowan Road. Choose carefully who you welcome. And remember. A final image appeared. Elowen standing outside Moonleaf Apothecary. Yellow door behind her. Cup of tea in hand. You are allowed to say no. The recording ended. The chamber became quiet. The map remained. Hundreds of roads. Some dark. Some slowly waking. Waiting. Professor Iris looked toward Elias. What will you do? He stared at Willowridge, then at the roots reaching toward it. I don't know. She nodded. Good. He looked at her. Good. You're thinking before making a decision. Noah smiled. Unlike some people, everyone looked at him. I meant generally. Rowena moved toward a nearby shelf. There were dozens of Ashcroft journals. Her master's handwriting. Her family's records. Years of work. She touched one gently. I think. Everyone waited. I want to stay here for a while. Elias smiled. At the cottage? Yes. I've spent months wondering where I belong. She looked around the chamber. Maybe I don't need the answer yet. But, there's work here. Professor Iris looked delighted. I can help. Rowena laughed. I assumed. They spent the rest of the morning cataloging. Or rather, Rowena and Iris cataloged. Elias examined the map. Noah discovered an old storage room containing travel equipment. Luna found a cushion. Naturally. Near noon, Elias noticed something. One road on the map was glowing softly. Not red, not threatening. Gold. It connected the Ashcroft cottage to Willowridge, the old northern road. Rowena approached. It wasn't glowing before. Elias looked at her. We traveled it. The road remembers. A tiny image appeared above the line. 4 people walking through the forest. A black cat. Lanterns lighting one by one. Elias recognized them. Yesterday. Their journey. The road had already recorded it. Noah stared. Can it show the echo spirit? The map changed. An image appeared of Noah nearly turning toward the false voice. Delete that. Professor Iris smiled. Historical record. Delete it. Elias laughed. The tension finally broke. That afternoon, they closed the chamber. Not permanently. Rowena now had Edith's staff. Elias had the wooden key. Together, they could reopen it. The blue teacup remained upstairs. Rowena washed it, then placed it on the kitchen shelf. Elias noticed. You're keeping it. She smiled. It finally came home. Before sunset, Elias stood outside the cottage. The northern road glowed faintly through the trees. Luna sat beside him. Do you think Grandma knew I'd end up here? No. Elias looked surprised. Really? Elowen wasn't a prophet. Luna's tail curled around her paws. She hoped someone would. That's different. Elias looked toward the distant mountains. What if I make the wrong choice? You will. He stared at her. Luna continued calmly. Eventually. Everyone does. Helpful. You'll correct it. And if I can't, then someone after you might. Elias smiled. Generations. Promises. Letters. Roads. Perhaps that was the point. Nobody finished everything. Elowen hadn't. Edith hadn't. Their grandchildren and apprentices wouldn't either. You simply carried what you could. Then eventually, you handed it to someone else. That night, before sleeping, Elias opened his own notebook. He wrote, things the roads remember. Then beneath it, a road is not an invitation. A door is not an obligation. Helping someone does not mean helping everyone. He paused, then added, Moonleaf can remain small. Small does not mean unimportant. Far south, in Willowridge, the spirit tree shimmered beneath the stars. Several glowing paths stretched from its roots. One toward the forest shrine. One toward the lantern market. One north, and several others, waiting, but none opened. Not yet, because the witch of Moonleaf Apothecary had finally understood something the old roads had been waiting decades for someone to remember. A road could lead anywhere. But the person standing at the door still had the right to decide who entered. Chapter 15. Home is where the kettle sings. The journey back to Willowridge should have taken 6 hours. It took 4. This was not because Noah drove faster. Elias made absolutely certain of that. It was because the Northern Witch Road had remembered them. They left Edith Ashcroft's cottage shortly after sunrise. Rowena stood on the porch while Elias loaded the last bag. Unlike 3 days earlier, she wasn't coming with them. Not yet. Professor Iris had decided to remain too. For research, she said. Noah stared at the mountain of notebooks she'd already accumulated. Obviously. Iris adjusted her glasses. And because someone needs to stop Rowena from reorganizing the entire archive without documentation. Rowena looked offended. It's my archive. Exactly. Elias carried his suitcase down the porch steps. Then stopped. Something felt strange. He looked back. Rowena stood beneath the cottage doorway. Winter violets bloomed around her boots. Edith's staff rested in one hand. For the first time since Elias had met her, she didn't look like a traveler. She looked like she belonged somewhere. You're staying, Elias said. For a while. Rowena smiled. Not forever. You don't have to decide that yet. Her smile softened. No, I suppose I don't. Luna sat beside Elias's suitcase. Are we leaving? In a minute. You said that 10 minutes ago. Goodbyes take time. Humans make them take time. Noah emerged from behind the van. You're a 100-year-old talking cat. Luna looked at him. And yet somehow I waste less time than you. Rowena hugged Elias. He froze. Not because he disliked it. Mostly because people rarely warned him before doing that. Thank you, she whispered. For what? Bringing the cup. Grandma brought it. 53 years late. Still. Rowena pulled away. Come back sometime. Elias looked toward the cottage. The hidden archive beneath it. The old northern road. The thousands of journals. The mysteries still waiting. Then he looked at Rowena. Maybe. Noah shouted from the van. That means yes. Elias closed his eyes. Drive carefully. Professor Iris approached next. She handed Elias a notebook. He frowned. What is this? Copies of my preliminary road observations. I didn't ask for them. I know. Then why? You'll read them. Elias stared. Iris smiled. You'll pretend you won't. Then you'll make tea. Then you'll read the first page. Then suddenly it'll be midnight. Elias looked toward Luna. Why does everyone know me? You are extremely predictable. Before leaving, Elias looked toward the cottage one last time. The blue teacup sat in the kitchen window. Exactly where it belonged. Promise delivered. Journey finished. Mostly. The road home. They walked toward the old road. Elias expected the same hour-long journey back to Noah's van. Instead, the first lantern lit. Fwoom. Then the second. Then the third. Silver-green light stretched between them. The forest blurred. Noah stopped. Ah. Luna's ears lifted. The road recognizes us. Elias tightened his grip on his suitcase. Is that good? Usually. Usually. Keep walking. They passed beneath the Ashcroft stone arch. 1 step. 2. 3. And suddenly, they were standing beside the metal gate. Noah's van waited on the other side. Everyone stared. Noah checked his watch. 7 minutes. Elias looked back. The path behind them seemed perfectly ordinary. No glowing lanterns. No cottage. Only forest. The road shortened itself. Luna nodded. We're no longer strangers. Noah smiled. I like magical roads. Elias pointed toward him. Do not become comfortable with magical roads. Too late. They drove south. Greyhaven passed quickly. Then the mountains. Then farms. Then ordinary highways. The farther they traveled, the more familiar everything became. Gas stations. Road signs. Traffic lights. Delivery trucks. No glowing symbols. No mysterious voices. No ancient magical pathways. Elias hadn't realized how much he'd missed boring roads. At a service station, Noah bought coffee. Elias bought tea. Luna received nothing. She complained. You had breakfast. That was hours ago. It was 90 minutes ago. Precisely. Noah leaned against the van. So. Elias immediately became suspicious. What are you going to do about the roads? I don't know. You've said that a lot. Because it's true. You're allowed to reopen them, right? Some. And close others. Apparently. Noah sipped his coffee. That's a lot. Elias looked toward the highway. Yes. Noah became unusually quiet. Then said. You don't have to decide today. Elias looked at him. That's surprisingly sensible. I have moments. Rare ones. Enjoy it. They continued south. Willowridge. They saw the spirit tree first. Long before Moonleaf Apothecary came into view. Its silver crown rose above the distant fields. Elias sat straighter. Luna climbed onto the dashboard. Noah noticed. Home. Elias smiled. Home. The van turned onto the familiar road. And stopped. Elias stared. There were people outside Moonleaf Apothecary. A lot of people. His expression changed immediately. No. Noah started laughing. What happened? I left for 3 days. Mrs. Agnes stood outside the shop. Mia was beside her. Thomas Bell. Mayor Benjamin. Dr. Bennett. Several regular customers. 2 children holding sleepy clover pots. And someone had hung a banner between the garden posts. Welcome home, Elias. Elias slowly sank lower in his seat. Keep driving. Noah laughed harder. You can't escape your own welcome party. I can try. Luna's tail flicked. Pathetic. Mia spotted the van. They're here. Everyone turned. Elias closed his eyes. Wonderful. The moment he stepped out, Mia ran toward him. You're back. She hugged him around the waist. Elias nearly dropped his suitcase. Hello, Mia. Did you take pictures? Yes. Did you bring souvenirs? She narrowed her eyes. You promised. I said maybe. Legally yes. Luna jumped from the van. I warned you. Mrs. Agnes walked over. You're alive. Yes. Good. She handed him the shop key. Nothing burned down. Elias stared at Moonleaf. Was that a possibility? No. A pause. Mostly. Agnes. Thomas handed him a loaf of bread. Welcome back, Doctor. Bennett nodded. Quiet week. Mayor Benjamin smiled. Only 3 people asked whether you'd permanently moved. Elias looked horrified. I was gone 3 days. I told them that. Then Elias noticed something. Beside Moonleaf's front door sat a wooden crate. Inside were letters. Dozens. He looked toward Mrs. Agnes. What are those? Mail. All of it. People heard about Elowen's letters. Elias's stomach sank. Why are they writing to me? They aren't. Mrs. Agnes picked up one envelope. To Moonleaf Apothecary, for whoever needs this. Elias frowned. What? There were thank you letters. Stories. Recipes. Pressed flowers. Seeds. Old photographs. People responding to Elowen's letters. Families writing back. Some addressed to people long dead. Others simply wanted their words returned to Moonleaf. One envelope contained a photograph of Margaret Bell holding Elowen's letter. On the back, 47 years late, still worth waiting for. Elias smiled. Another came from Professor Iris's mother. Another from a family in Greenbridge. Another from someone Elias had never met. The box marked letters still. Traveling now had a companion. Mia had painted another label. Letters that found their way back. Elias stared at it. Your idea. Mia nodded proudly. He smiled. Keep it. Opening the shop again. The welcome gathering eventually dispersed. Mostly because Elias threatened to reopen the shop immediately and put everyone to work. Noah stayed. Mia stayed. Mrs. Agnes stayed. Thomas stayed. Mayor Benjamin left. Then returned 10 minutes later. Elias stared. I thought you left. I forgot there was cake. Of course. Elias unlocked Moonleaf Apothecary. Click. The door opened. The smell hit him first. Dried herbs. Old wood. Tea. Lavender. A faint sweetness from moon mint. He stood in the doorway. 3 days. That was all. Yet walking inside felt different. Not because the shop had changed. Because he had. Only slightly. Enough to notice. He touched the counter. Home. Luna jumped onto her usual windowsill. Home. Noah immediately inspected the shelf he'd repaired weeks earlier. Still crooked. Home. Mia sat at the tea table and pulled out her homework. Definitely home. Elias went into the kitchen. He filled the kettle, set it on the stove. Then waited. No magic. No mystery. No ancient road. Just water slowly heating. The kettle began to sing. Elias smiled. Mrs. Agnes appeared in the doorway. Tea. Yes. Good. She sat. Then Noah. Then Mia. Then Thomas. Then Mayor Benjamin. Soon the kitchen table was full. Elias stared. I thought everyone was leaving. Nobody moved. Luna looked at him. You've been away. For 3 days. Apparently traumatic. He prepared a large pot. Chamomile. Mint. A little dried apple. Nothing magical. Mostly. Mia took the first cup. Noah the second. Mrs. Agnes the third. Thomas. Benjamin. Elias. And finally, a tiny saucer for Luna. She inspected it. No cream. You complained about being hungry. Tea and food are different requirements. Elias added cream. For a while, they talked. Mia described everything he'd missed at school. Almost nothing. Thomas complained about his new oven. Mrs. Agnes told him which customers had visited. Mayor Benjamin explained that someone had once again moved the town square bench without permission. Noah showed everyone photographs from the trip, including one of Elias asleep in the van. Elias stared. Delete that. No. Then Noah showed the picture of Edith's cottage. Winter violets. Dark pine trees. Rowena standing on the porch. Mia smiled. She looks happy. Elias looked at the photograph. Yes. Is she coming back? Eventually. And Professor Iris. Also eventually. Mrs. Agnes nodded. Good. No drama. No sadness. Just. Eventually. The trees question. After sunset, everyone finally went home. Noah was last. He stood outside beside his van. Tomorrow. Elias frowned. What? Work. Yes. Noah grinned. So the holiday didn't cure you. It was 3 days. Still. He drove away. Moonleaf became quiet. Elias changed the sign. Open tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Then locked the door. Mia had already gone home. Luna wandered toward the garden. Elias followed. The spirit tree glowed brightly beneath the stars. Several silver paths stretched between its roots. More than before. Elias counted. 1. The forest shrine. 2. The lantern market. 3. The northern witch road. 4. The road where Clover had been found. Then, 5, 6, 7, 8, unknown roads. Waiting. Elias approached. The wooden key in his pocket warmed. The tree rustled. Chime. I know. Chime. I said I know. Luna sat beside him. It isn't demanding. It feels demanding. It's asking. Elias looked toward the glowing paths. Which ones are safe? The tree didn't answer. Helpful. He remembered Edith's archive. A road requires 2 things. A destination. And permission. Elias crouched. He touched the path. Leading north. Warm. Familiar. Safe. It glowed brighter. He touched the lantern market path. Warm. Safe. Then the shrine. Safe. The unknown roads remained dim. Elias withdrew his hand. Not yet. The spirit tree rustled. Then, the unknown paths faded. No argument. No resistance. Just acceptance. Elias stared. That's it. Luna looked at him. What did you expect? I don't know. Ancient magical forces to punish me. Possibly. Luna yawned. You read too many dramatic books. Elias laughed. For months, he had been afraid the awakening spirit tree meant Moonleaf would inevitably become something bigger. A center. A crossroads. A responsibility too large for one quiet witch. But Edith had been right. He could say no. And the tree listened. He touched the 3 familiar paths again. The shrine. The lantern market. The northern road. These can stay. The silver lines brightened. A soft pulse traveled outward. Far away, a lantern lit at the hidden shrine. At the lantern market, an empty stall unfolded its awning. In the northern forest, 1 stone lantern beside Edith's cottage glowed. 3 roads. No more. For now. Luna looked toward him. You've made your first decision. 3 roads. 3 is enough. Elias smiled. Small. Small is not the same as unimportant. He looked at her. You heard me right that. I live with you. Right. Monday morning. Elias woke before his alarm. He came downstairs. Opened the curtains. Watered the herbs. Fed Luna. Prepared tea. At 8:59, he turned the sign. Open. Ding. The first customer entered almost immediately. Mrs. Carter. 73. No magic. No ancient mystery. No supernatural curse. She held her lower back. Elias, dear. Good morning. Do you have anything for this? Elias smiled. Of course. He prepared a warming herbal balm. Ginger root. Wintergreen. A tiny amount of safe heat magic. He explained how to use it. Mrs. Carter paid. Then left. Ding. The next customer entered. A father whose toddler wouldn't sleep. Then a gardener with irritated hands. Then a teenager needing calming tea before an exam. Then Thomas asking whether Elias had something for a headache. You own a bakery. Yes. You ate 4 pastries this morning. Unrelated. At 11, a magical customer arrived. A small river spirit carrying a wet coin. It wanted moon mint. Elias accepted the coin. No fuss. No ceremony. The spirit left. Mrs. Carter, returning because she'd forgotten her umbrella, passed it in the doorway. She looked at the dripping creature. Then at Elias. Friend of yours. Customer. Ah. She picked up her umbrella. Have a nice day. And left. Elias stood behind the counter. For some reason, that tiny interaction made him smile. Magic. Ordinary life. Neither hiding. Neither overwhelming the other. Simply sharing the same doorway. Perhaps that was what Elowin had wanted. Not a magical kingdom. Not a secret society. Just a place where anyone who needed help could walk inside. At noon, the kettle began singing. Mia arrived after school. Noah arrived carrying wood. A delivery van pulled up outside. Luna slept in the window. The spirit tree rustled, and Moonleaf Apothecary continued. That evening, Elias opened Elowin's notebook. Most of the letters still hadn't been delivered. There were names across the country, across the sea, journeys still waiting, but Elias no longer felt pressured by them. He turned to a blank page. At the top, he wrote, Moonleaf Roads. Then, 1. Willowridge Shrine, open. 2. Lantern Market, open. 3. Ashcroft Northern Road, open. He left the rest of the page empty. There would be more someday. Maybe, when he was ready. Below that, he wrote another list. Things Moonleaf is: a shop, a garden, a place for tea, a place for medicine, a place where people can ask for help. He paused, then added, home. Luna jumped onto the desk. She read the page. You're becoming sentimental, I've been told. Concerning. Elias closed the notebook. Tea. Luna immediately jumped down. With cream. Obviously. Outside, Willowridge settled beneath the evening sky. The cherry tree beside the river moved in the breeze. Shiro's distant white shape crossed a field. Tiny sleepy clovers folded their leaves on children's windowsills. Somewhere north, Rowena opened one of Edith's old journals. Professor Iris took far too many notes. At the lantern market, Adrian Solis sat on a crate playing violin for 3 spirits and a merchant who insisted he was not listening. And beneath Moonleaf Apothecary, 3 ancient roads glowed softly. Not hundreds. 3. Enough. Elias carried 2 cups of tea into the garden. One for himself, one small saucer for Luna. He sat beneath the spirit tree. The kettle could still be heard faintly through the open kitchen window. A quiet little song. Familiar. Ordinary. Elias leaned back against the trunk. He had traveled beyond the hills. He had found pieces of his grandmother's world. He had discovered roads that remembered. Promises that survived their makers. Doors that waited for permission. And a world much larger than he had ever wanted. Yet somehow, coming home hadn't made Moonleaf feel smaller. It had made him understand why small things mattered. A cup of tea, a warm room, a familiar chair, a medicine that helped someone sleep, a friend sitting across the table, a shop door that opened when someone needed it. None of those things would ever appear on a magical map as something grand. But perhaps they didn't need to. Because the old roads could remember every journey ever taken. The spirit tree could remember generations. Magic could preserve promises for half a century. But Elias Rowan knew something equally important. At the end of every road, people still needed somewhere to come home to. And at Moonleaf Apothecary, the kettle was singing. End of chapter 15. Thank you for listening to II Fiction Stories. Please like, comment, share and subscribe. See you next time.